One meet this kid named Ghislain, the eldest son of the noble Pertium family. But they are completely broke, and everyone in the mansion is absolutely terrified of him. And honestly, who can blame them, since he has a legendary reputation for being utterly cursed? He has a truly despicable personality, and soon, the constant rejection became unbearable. So Ghislain decided to leave the family before they could officially throw him out. He worked as a mercenary, building an absolutely insane reputation over the years. Eventually, his sheer power earned him a spot among the 7 greats of the continent. Growing up, Ghislain realized what a complete jerk he had been to his family. So he headed right back home, hoping to beg them for forgiveness. But instead, he discovered his family, an entire kingdom, had been completely wiped out. A massive betrayal had destroyed everything, leading to a long, brutal war between the kingdoms. Ghislain was finally defeated in battle, where the noble swordsman Eden confronted him. Eden declared the war was over and asked the dying warrior for his final words. Ghislain admitted his only regret was never getting revenge, and Eden coldly wished him death. Eden just chuckled, telling Ghislain that he was far too arrogant. Suddenly, Eden asked about the boy who abandoned his family when his sister died. Shaken, Ghislain demanded to know how Eden could possibly have found out about that. Eden admitted he spent a lot of effort digging up that dark past. He confessed they had actually partnered with the Dolphin family to destroy everything. They targeted the Pertium family together, leaving Ghislain completely frozen in absolute shock. He never imagined another faction was pulling the strings, but Eden cut him off. He declared further talk useless, since Ghislain was going to die right now anyway. This revelation triggered a wave of pure, unfiltered rage inside him like never before. Eden struck down the mercenary king, but instead of fading away, something changed. Hold on, his body starts feeling incredibly strange as all his past memories flash by. He relives the painful memory of his sister dying back when he was a rebel. Suddenly, Ghislain wakes up inside a room, staring down at his surprisingly young hands. He knows he just died, yet his body is screaming in absolute agony. The pain is so intense, he actually thinks staying dead would have been better. Right then, the door swings wide open as a familiar face rushes into the room. Seeing his personal tutor Belinda alive, and completely freezes him in place. She explains how worried she was, scolding him for not leaving the dangerous orcs alone. But he completely cuts her off by lunging forward to wrap her in a tight hug. Utterly startled by the gesture, she asks if she somehow did something wrong. Belinda was his beloved tutor, the only person who stayed by his side through everything. Yet after the family fell, she disappeared, and he never saw her face again. Naturally, she is deeply confused by his emotional reaction since they see each other daily. Realizing the gravity of his situation, Ghislain decides he has to warn her immediately. He tells her a massive disaster is coming for the mansion, shocking her completely. Next, he delivers the wildest news of all, that he has returned from the dead. But Belinda just assumes his mind is playing tricks after taking that heavy blow. She playfully shoots back that the only real disaster here is going to fall on him. She starts lecturing him about his reckless behavior, but he expected this reaction. She points out he might miss the entire upcoming festival if he remains injured. At those words, his mind goes completely blank as she brings up Helena. Helena looked forward to the day Ghislain would take her to the festival, the maids saw. This as a great chance for them to reconnect. Ghislain then remembered a festival held around this time of year, in the past because of everything going on. He had never been able to enjoy it with her. When he asked when the festival would take place, she replied it was in about a week. That got him thinking. Suddenly, someone else stepped into the room, turning toward the familiar voice. Ghislain felt completely confused. All his life he had been haunted by memories he couldn't escape. But get this, in 1 week, his sister was supposed to die. Seeing her, Ghislain rushed over and hugged her tightly. Belinda watched in shock. Helena was also taken aback, thinking her brother was playing some Kind of prank, but Ghislain just told her how much he had missed her. The girl pushed him away firmly, saying he was totally creeping her out, feeling the pain. Ghislain wondered if she had always been this strong. Sighing, Helena said this would not change what had happened between them. Ghislain did not get what she meant at first. It turned out he had said some pretty nasty things to her recently, and Helena was still hurting from it. Ghislain was surprised they had not been close in the past. Realizing he was in the wrong, he apologized. Stunned, the girls assumed his behavior was just a result of his clash with the orcs, but Ghislain insisted he was the one who defeated them, not the other way around. His shouting was cut short by a sharp pain shooting through his body. Watching him, Helena remarked that was probably why he had been dragged back to the mansion unconscious. The girls then shared a hearty laugh for a moment. Ghislain just watched them quietly, then he smiled because the people in front of him were exactly as he remembered. In the past, he had refused to go to the festival, using some failed trip as an excuse. That was the last time he saw his sister. Later, she was tragically lost along with her bodyguards. Ghislain blamed himself for not being there with her. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. 2 guards appeared looking for Helena. They apologized for the intrusion and explained that the staff needed her to oversee the festival preparations. Ghislain asked why they were asking Helena to do that. Belinda explained that because they were short-staffed, even Helena had to help out. Sometimes, looking at his sister, he realized that in the past he simply had not cared enough to notice. Suddenly, he offered his help. Hearing this, Helena spun around, surprised. The girls were once again convinced Ghislain had taken a serious blow to the head. When they left, it was incredibly noisy. Helena refused Ghislain's help because no one wanted to work with him around. Ghislain figured Helena's body would be found far from the festival, meaning someone had dragged her there. To prevent that, he needed to find all the castle's entrances and exits. Suddenly, he heard someone's voice approaching. When Ghislain saw the man, he recognized him instantly. Standing before him was an old, panting man, Fergus. The old man said he came right away as soon as he heard what happened to the detachment. Helena said Ghislain was acting weird, so Fergus should have taken the boy back. Ghislain had to resign himself to the fact that he would need to gather information slowly. Afterward, he asked the old man to take him to an abandoned training ground. When asked why, the young man Ghislain calmly replied that he was going to train, leaving Fergus completely shocked. When the older man led him to the training grounds, Ghislain was stunned. It turned out to be even better than he had imagined, the ultimate spot for his training, one he had never found during all his years as a mercenary. Fergus mentioned they had been watching over the area because Fergus was sure the young man's troubles would solve themselves with time. Suddenly, Ghislain realized that Fergus had been just as caring in his past life. Reflecting on this, the young man felt a wave of sadness. He replied that he wanted to live a long life because death was not for him, giving Fergus the eerie feeling that the boy had already faced death before. Ghislain sarcastically shot back that he had indeed died and been reborn. When Fergus laughed it off as a joke, Ghislain simply bid him farewell. The young man reflected on how hostile he used to be toward everyone, but in reality he was just blind. But get this, he had only 1 week before everything began to fall apart. He had discovered that a neighboring feudal lord was behind Helena's death, dragging Pertium into a war they were bound to lose. Ghislain knew his sister's death was the trigger for all this tragedy. That was why he decided to change fate. He would start by training his own fragile body, despite the lack of time. Even so, he intended to open the pathways of mana, the mystical force that allowed individuals to shatter their human limits. Gathering and releasing this energy was incredibly difficult. But Ghislain could manage it even in the heat of battle. He only needed to sense the raw mana particles and pool them together. For a legendary warrior who had survived tens of thousands of battles, forming a mana core was easy, yet that was not the only secret that had made Ghislain one of the strongest. His true edge came from a secret technique found in an ancient book. Because of that unique method, he could form multiple mana cores, best of all, 3. Were interconnected. This could easily restore his legendary strength, but his current body was too weak for the strain. Before, he could maintain 5 cores. But right now 3 was his absolute limit. This high-risk method promised rapid growth, but it demanded a massive amount of upkeep. Ultimately, this was the primary reason for Ghislain's past defeat against Aiden, who attacked him when his energy was completely drained. The strategy was risky, but for now, it would have to do. Ghislain was young, with plenty of time on his hands, and he was determined to take Aiden's head and destroy the powerful Delphine family and their goons. Talk about satisfying payback. He would destroy them all. A week later, a grand festival was held, and Ghislain showed up fully armed, which shocked Helena. It was highly unusual for her reclusive brother to attend a public gathering, but he had to appear as the official representative of their noble household. Helena instantly noticed his sharp posture and figured out he had been training all week. Ghislain casually asked what was so strange about him doing some training, but Helena quickly reminded him that he had always despised martial arts. Ghislain was taken aback when she teased him about wanting to inherit the lordship so suddenly. With a warm smile, Helena added that seeing these changes in him made her incredibly happy. It felt as though the caring brother she once knew had finally returned. Hearing this, the young man froze in silence, suddenly realizing something very important about his past. His actions changed things. Now both the present and future were shifting. Major events stayed locked in place, but the smaller details became unpredictable. So he adapted. He relied solely on his knowledge of the future. He carefully designed the most ruthless, effective plan for each scenario. Bracing for impact, he spent the night wandering around the festival ground. His sister Helena dragged him along as she happily sampled street food. She loved absolutely everything, completely oblivious to his dark, heavy thoughts. Even though the yearly festival had long since lost its original charm. Still, Ghislain felt relieved. Nothing bad had actually happened yet. But as things wrapped up, some family nights approached with strange news. They claimed a new form of entertainment was waiting just ahead. Helena eagerly agreed to go, but Ghislain sensed a trap immediately. It turned out his family harbored snakes, and honestly, betrayal always hurts the most. Philip and Jamal were trusted knights who had guarded Helena since birth. They led them into a dark, deserted alley with nothing inside. Helena looked around, deeply confused. How could anyone find entertainment here? Jamal quickly told them to wait, promising the crowd would arrive shortly. Helena scoffed, completely insulted that they were wasting time in this dump. Ignoring her complaints, Ghislain kept his eyes locked on their surroundings. At first glance, it seemed ordinary, but every escape route was blocked. The cold realization hit him. They were completely trapped inside. Suddenly, his sister's sharp voice snapped him back to reality. She grabbed Ghislain's arm to drag him away, pulling with intense force. Distracted by her brother, she failed to see the guard blocking her. She bumped straight into Philip, who told her to wait just a bit longer. One look at his strangely twisted, hollow expression terrified the girl. She backed away, demanding to know what was wrong with them. Jamal smiled coldly, claiming they had no intention of scaring her. They just had a small request. Helena's heart sank with dread. Right then, another man stepped out of the shadows with 2 thugs. Frank arrived with a smug grin, praising their clean work. Jamal agreed, eager to finally seal the deal and get paid. But then Frank's eyes shifted directly to the boy standing nearby. Recognizing Ghislain instantly, he snapped that he did not hire him. Jamal shrugged. He called Ghislain an extra bonus for the trade. Ghislain cut in, asking why they thought selling them was so easy. The traitor laughed, telling Ghislain to worry about his own skin. He admitted they were taking the money and fleeing these poor lands. Everyone else was already running away anyway, so why not them? But the traitor made one fatal mistake. He completely underestimated this kid. Ghislain lunged forward with blinding speed, striking before anyone could react. A choked cough escaped Jamal's lips as blood sprayed everywhere. The sudden, brutal execution left the entire group frozen with shock. As the traitor collapsed, Ghislain warned them never to trade human lives. He turned a terrifying gaze toward Philip. The trembling knight grabbed Helena to draw his weapon, but right before him, Ghislain launched a brutal first strike, cutting down the enemy instantly. Before dying, the bandit could only gasp out that this was completely unthinkable. His lifeless body then collapsed straight to the cold ground. The remaining bandits started muttering in shock about the eldest son of the Pertium family, who had never actually trained, but their leader was dead. Sure, it was indeed Ghislain standing there. The two knights were totally distracted. But even so, the young man's swordsmanship was absolutely stunning. Helena, trembling with absolute terror, demanded to know what was happening, but Ghislain did not even care to answer his sister. With one swift, decisive move, he simply knocked her completely out cold. He scooped her up and gently laid her down. Right then, the bandits thanked him for doing their dirty work, and Ghislain slowly turned around. The leader said they wanted those knights dead anyway, mocking that the boy was nothing like the rumors. He figured Ghislain had been hiding his true skills this entire time. Raising his sword, Ghislain asked what that had to do with them. Tightening his grip, he counted only 3 opponents remaining. Those 2 behind him were nothing, but the leader was a different story. He was radiating an immense amount of mana. Ghislain needed to end him fast. But first, he coldly demanded to know who ordered this hit on them. The thief just sneered. Dead men have no use for answers. Ghislain was not surprised by this response. Now watch, he was going to make this trash talk. The leader barked an order to capture the kid alive, telling his men to break his limbs so he would rot in pure, helpless despair. Grinning wickedly, the leader muttered that to build a masterpiece, you must learn pain. Just as the order fell, the 2 bandits lunged straight at him. But standing before them, Ghislain was like ice, completely unmoved. He dodged with fluid grace as they charged right in. Ghislain suddenly threw something straight at them. The bandit instantly recognized it as a firecracker, but a heavy blow slammed right into his face. Slicing right through the spark, Ghislain buried his blade deep into the skull. Instantly, the second thug flanked the young man, aiming for a blind spot. He swung hard, but Ghislain blocked it with flawless precision. With a swift twist, Ghislain disarmed him, grabbing the blade. In that same breath, he spun around and slashed his blade, cleanly severing the thief's head. But wait, a sharp whistle echoed from right above them. Seeing his crew slaughtered, the boss finally decided to join the fray. But sensing the sneak attack, Ghislain deflected the heavy strike. The leader was baffled. How could this kid block from a blind spot? Pivoting on his heel, Ghislain immediately launched his counter. Caught completely off guard, the bandit leader could not react in time. The strike sliced his neck and chopped his smoking pipe right in half, but the boss's sword kept swinging. Sensing the danger, Ghislain braced and blocked the blow. Now, the leader realized Ghislain's sheer power. Without immense mana, the kid's head would have rolled. Ghislain figured the leader must have shielded himself with dense mana to escape fatal damage. Where did this young master get such terrifying power? He acknowledged the kid's impressive skills, but promised that Ghislain would die right here. Right then, glowing mana erupted around the man as he launched into his attack. He taunted that with such pitifully low mana reserves, Ghislain stood 0 chance of winning. With sadistic excitement shining in his eyes, he couldn't wait to finish the boy off. But the moment those words left his mouth, a confident smile crept onto Ghislain's face. The sudden shift caught him completely off guard as Ghislain dodged and deflected the incoming strike. Exploiting the thief's momentary hesitation, the young master delivered a crushing kick. Absorbing the blow, the assassin jumped back several meters. He still believed that with such pathetic mana, Ghislain had no chance of winning. But before he could even finish that thought, warm blood gushed from his throat. Buckling under the agonizing pain, the assassin collapsed to his knees, coughing violently. That kick wasn't even heavy, which meant Ghislain had somehow bypassed his physical protection enchantment. Stepping closer, Ghislain quietly admitted he never suspected a conspiracy behind his sister's tragic death. But now that the truth was out, a cold, blinding rage consumed him entirely. He was determined to unmask the mastermind and put this trash down right here and now. Feeling an explosive surge of mana, the thief was completely caught off guard. His frantic thoughts shatter as the young warrior suddenly charges him head-on. The assassin has to admit the kid is fast, but he still manages to raise his guard. He barely holds off Ghislain's savage onslaught as the brutal duel rages on. Suddenly, Ghislain unleashes an absolute powerhouse of an attack, putting everything into one massive swing. He slams his twin swords down, leaving the thief's hands shaking from the terrifying impact. Even while desperately blocking, the assassin's blade begins to spiderweb with tiny, ominous cracks. He has never seen anyone channel such an absolute flood of mana before. It was as though Ghislain had transformed into a completely different beast. With one more heavy strike, Ghislain shatters the man's sword into pieces. Unchecked, the blade tears straight through, dealing a brutal, fatal blow that sends blood spraying. A crimson torrent erupts, but Ghislain is far from finished as he prepares his next strike. Without hesitation, he drives his sword deep into the completely helpless, defenseless target. The man screams in pure agony from the piercing wound, but Ghislain remains completely heartless. He simply clamps a hand around the assassin's throat, slamming him backward into the ground. Standing over him, Ghislain calmly invites the man to keep talking. Without flinching, he demands to know exactly who ordered this hit on his family. But the stubborn assassin refuses to break, sneakily drawing a hidden, poisoned dagger instead. Turns out his true target was Ghislain all along, not his sleeping sister Helena. He plans to drag the young master to hell with him, but as he prepares to throw, his hand suddenly freezes midair, trapped by a binding spell as Ghislain offers a deal. He promises to put away his weapon if the assassin stops playing dumb and cooperates. The thief instantly realizes these binding threads are made of pure mana. But he has absolutely no clue when Ghislain could have possibly cast them. It turns out Ghislain had been secretly setting up this trap the entire time. Clutching his sword, the assassin desperately boasts that a strong warrior can survive these wounds. But Ghislain coldly reminds him that everything ends the moment his mana core is shattered. Hearing that, the thief instantly tenses up as a searing pain rips through his body. A massive crack begins to spiderweb across his chest, but what truly terrifies him is how quickly his mana is bleeding away. Realizing his absolute defeat, he warns the boy. That raging mana would obliterate everything in its path, but Ghislain just scoffed. Only amateurs die, he declared, but he would find a way. The spy knew it. Ghislain was not bluffing. Looking into his eyes, he saw death staring back. Terrified, he betrayed the Count, the very man who ordered the hit. He confessed that Helena's execution was Count Desmond's twisted plan to start a war. Yet Ghislain remained unfazed. In his past life, the dirty work always fell here. The dirty work always fell on allied families. Was that why they needed Helena? The man confirmed it, but right then, Ghislain plunged his sword even deeper. Coughing blood, the thief choked out, demanding to know why Ghislain broke their deal. Ghislain only let out a low, chilling chuckle in response. He pointed out that the thief killed many, yet became a coward facing death. The thief was utterly shocked to hear him laugh, talk about a cold-blooded reaction. He gasped that his death changed nothing, as the degrade issue was already settled. But Ghislain forcibly shut him up, wanting to explain something first. Smiling, Ghislain whispered that he had actually been reborn after dying once. And this time around, everything was going to be completely different. With those words, he twisted the blade, unleashing agonizing pain once more. The mana violently erupted, but Ghislain stood there completely untouched. Gasping for breath, he turned and saw Helena fast asleep on the floor. Tossing the sword aside, Ghislain leaned his head back and let out a tired sigh. But in that exact moment, a surge of blood rushed up his throat. Falling to his knees, he coughed up blood and cursed his own body. His power had never caused this. Staring ahead, he vowed not to break. He forced his way inside, only to find another dead body waiting. Ghislain rushed over, already suspecting exactly who this poor soul was. If the thief spoke the truth, this could only be one person. It was the young master of the Degrade family, cold and lifeless. They were framed as Helena's killers, but their deaths were clearly planned. Once this news leaked, a brutal territorial war would instantly ignite. To prevent that, Ghislain decided to erase all traces of the crime. Setting the building ablaze, he grabbed his sister and quietly slipped away. But someone watched them flee, preparing to report the failed mission. Word spread fast, and the conspirators realized their scheme had failed. Anger flared as insults flew, but the spy desperately tried to explain. He insisted that Ghislain himself stepped in to save Helena. But to them, Ghislain was nothing more than a useless, pathetic idiot. One of them scoffed, saying everyone knew Ghislain was completely harmless. The spy argued back, insisting the boy was nothing like the rumors. The reality of his strength was terrifyingly different from the gossip. He even suspected another soul was hiding inside that young body. Shifting focus to Degrade, he argued a war was still very possible. The spy begged for one more chance, but they were done. Labeling him useless, they prepared to execute him right then and there. Suddenly, a powerful voice echoed, asking what kind of chance he wanted. The imposing figure stepped forward, promising to handle Ghislain himself. Since he has a hidden trump card, naturally, everyone is instantly intrigued. Rumors spread about Kane, a master swordsman famous for his peerless fencing. And since Kane is actually Ghislain's cousin, setting them up to fight is remarkably easy. Silence, nobody wants to speak first. The entire room holds its breath. Finally, the absolute strongest person in the room speaks up to deliver a cold warning. Fail again and there will not be a next time, period. Back at the training grounds, old Fergus wants to treat the talented youth to lunch. But then, boom, a brilliant golden light suddenly flashes right before them. A strange, brilliant glow wraps completely around a sword, resting quietly against the training wall. Inside the hall, Ghislain effortlessly catches the blade, not even trying. After giving the weapon a few quick, smooth swings, he decides it is pretty good. Oh, a guest, Fergus quickly apologizes for interrupting his training session. But curiosity wins, and the old man bluntly asks how he pulled off that move. Confused, Ghislain asks what he means and decides to show him again. Watch, he demonstrates how mana threads physically pull things. He has used them before, but controlling multiple strands right now takes truly immense strength. But if he can manage to manipulate everything using just a single thread instead, he can easily conserve his mana while keeping the same force. Fergus is absolutely stunned. He thought he knew everything about mana training. Clearly, he was wrong. Ghislain has found a completely mind-blowing application. But enough about training. The old man suddenly remembers a crucial message he has to deliver. Bowing deeply, he sincerely thanks the young master for saving Helena. Ghislain just shrugs it off casually, explaining that he only did what was absolutely necessary. A modest hero, but back home, nobody believed Helena when she explained how she was rescued from danger, but her incredibly stubborn brother flat out refused to back her up. Belinda is absolutely furious about their actions, but she always found those nights incredibly shady anyway. Ghislain knows there is a massive secret here. Still, he is satisfied. Why? He successfully delayed the war, buying himself some crucial, much-needed time to prepare. But he absolutely cannot fight this massive war alone, meaning he needs a real army. Right on time, a maid enters the room carrying their lunch. He knows building an army requires immense wealth and power, but his thoughts are abruptly and suddenly cut short. A completely dry piece of cheap bread is set right in front of his eyes. He just stares at it blankly before asking Belinda if they are actually serving dessert first. But she dryly reminds him of the harsh reality that their territory is dead broke. And right on cue, a massive, incredibly angry voice begins shouting from the streets outside. Upset merchants, they demand compensation for the suddenly canceled festival. Worst of all, he has a massive, angry mob backing him up. They are furious, convinced the Count is hoarding a mountain of gold. Ghislain peers out. He is completely shocked by the massive protest. Belinda sighs heavily, admitting she knew this absolute disaster was bound to happen sooner or later. She explains that many merchants in their territory relied on this festival. But canceling the entire event after just one single day has completely ruined their main livelihood. The merchants want blood. Ghislain instantly realizes the gravity of the situation. If he simply lets this massive crisis slide, the entire town will surely spin out of control. No time to waste, he immediately orders Fergus and the guards to prepare. To calm the raging crowd, the old man just smiled, saying there were no soldiers left. He explains that most of their forces had marched deep into the forest to eliminate the orcs. Originally, their lands were constantly plagued by wars due to relentless invader attacks. On the other side lay a monster-infested forest. Ghislain is livid. They have neither soldiers nor money. He tells Belinda they need to talk, arguing that since she is in charge of the funds, she should have appeased the merchants. But the girl simply states the money is gone. Smirking, she reminds him that the Count forbade Ghislain from taking money due to past reckless spending. After a moment of stunned silence, Ghislain finally realizes this means he is completely broke. He tries to borrow some from Belinda, but she has no money either. After a poor dinner, Ghislain sits alone, thinking about how they truly have nothing left to lose. At this rate, even with his knowledge of the future, he is completely helpless. But wait. Footsteps rush his way. A panicked knight bursts into the room, screaming. Ghislain drops down from the window ledge, demanding to know what is happening. Ricardo blurts out they have a major problem. Cain wants to see Ghislain. At the mention of that name, the young man's eyes widen. Before Ghislain even arrives, the guards can barely manage the chaos. Scoven takes the brunt of all the rage. From the brutal assault, Cain's hands are completely stained with the man's blood, but ignoring it completely, he continues to mercilessly beat the knight. The force of each blow is so powerful it crushes Scoven's armor. The knight is already badly battered when Ghislain arrives on the scene. Seeing him, Scoven trembles, whether from relief or pain, but the young lord is stunned by Cain's brutality. Hearing a voice, Ghislain tears his gaze away from Scoven. He sees Cain, who is massive compared to him. Looking down at the youth, Cain greets him. Ghislain offers a dry greeting back to his cousin. He actually remembers Cain's face quite well. He is the heir to the Allied Lodge lands. Even at a young age, Cain proved himself an exceptional warrior. Back then, Cain was Ghislain's only friend, but in reality they were rivals. Slowly, Cain walks toward him. Ghislain asks Ricardo what is going on here. The commander explains they received reports of a disturbance at a local tavern. There, they found Cain demanding to know if rumors about Ghislain were true. The commander started to explain everything in detail, but was cut off. Cain was outraged that Scoven lied right to his face. Ricardo concludes that this is how they ended up here. Cain shouts that it is always better to tell the truth about how Ghislain managed to defeat the orcs. That is why Cain decided to teach Scoven a lesson, though he blames Ghislain for spreading the rumors himself. Ghislain remains silent. After all, he remembers how Cain always treated him like a loyal lackey. When Cain caused trouble, nobody dared speak up because Ghislain obeyed. Absolutely nobody dared to disrespect Cain, especially Ghislain, who always suffered from intense inferiority. Back then, Kane's arrogant personality was seen as fitting for an heir. Ghislain chuckles softly, remembering how they criticized him even more back then. But the entire time, Kane kept his eyes locked right on him. He sneered, recalling how Ghislain used to scream at the slightest provocation. Deep down, he was shocked to get orders to execute Ghislain. They promised his family would be well supported, but Kane pointed out a problem. Ghislain was still a direct heir, making a quiet elimination pretty difficult. So they suggested staging a duel and framing the death as an accident. It was a golden opportunity, even if Kane never expected this contract. He had to kill his own cousin, but he did not hesitate. Kane figured they wanted Ghislain gone because they noticed he was changing. Laughing at the thought, Kane demands to know what Ghislain is doing now. He announces that since he is here, Ghislain better pay up what is owed. And since they just crashed the festival, Kane wants to liven things up. He is totally sure they are both on the exact same page when having fun. But Ghislain just stands there, completely lost in his own thoughts. He does not quite get it yet, asking if Kane is actually serious. He remembers how Kane always demanded booze and women whenever he visited. In the past, Ghislain always agreed just to avoid getting beaten up. But now, absolutely not. He won't waste a single coin. Suddenly, Belinda's words flash in his mind, and a genius idea hits him. A golden source of income has been standing right in front of him. Yes, he means Kane, but a harsh shout suddenly cuts his thoughts short. Kane barks a demand for everything to be brought out immediately. Ghislain agrees, but there is a catch, one condition. He wants Kane to pay his bills first, leaving Kane totally confused. Ghislain smirks, demanding Kane cough up 1,000 gold pieces with interest. Kane snaps back, reminding Ghislain that they are supposed to be friends. But Ghislain fires right back, telling Kane he was just using him. Ghislain demands Kane hand over the cash before they rip it from him. The tension suddenly spikes, and Ricardo is completely stunned by this bold move. He cannot fathom why Ghislain is acting so incredibly reckless right now. Kane stands up, growling that Ghislain is making a massive, fatal mistake. He barks that spreading rumors of victories won't make him any stronger. Clenching his fist, Kane warns Ghislain that everyone still thinks he is useless. Since Ghislain only spouts trash, Kane decides to end this right here. But as Kane lunges forward, Ghislain remains completely calm and easily dodges. Kane strikes again immediately, but he only hits thin air. Leaving himself wide open, Kane takes a brutal hit to his ribs. The solid strike leaves Kane completely stunned as Ghislain immediately attacks again. This time, Kane barely blocks the incoming kick, surprising Ghislain just slightly. Suddenly, Kane collapses. He screams in absolute, soul-crushing agony. A thief rushes over to help him, while Ghislain tells him to quit whining. He saw Kane block the blow, so there is no reason to complain. But the furious man yells at Ghislain to back the hell off. Now the whole crowd is staring, and Ghislain realizes what is happening. Suddenly, the accomplice realized what Kane was plotting. Kane whispered, asking if he had played his role incredibly well. The man agreed they did a great job simulating what Ghislain had set up. Right then, Kane reached inside his heavy pocket, highly driven by the solid promise of powerful backing, plus this fight was his golden opportunity to finally crush the pathetic, useless heir of House Pertium. Kane pulled, preparing to challenge his cousin to a duel, but before he could even finish, a heavy leather glove slapped across his face. Ghislain had beat him to the challenge. Initiating the duel himself, Kane stood there completely stunned as Ghislain called him out. Pointing out that Kane dared to assault citizens and humiliate noble families in broad daylight, he asked if Kane would dare deny these crimes. Absolute silence. Kane knew Ghislain was foolish but never expected him to dig his own grave. Drawing his blade, he warned Ghislain to back down, but the young lord remained completely, absolutely unfazed by the threat. Then Ghislain turned to Ricardo, ordering him to round up all the local merchants Immediately, he wanted them reassured that their stolen money would be recovered very soon. Canceling the festival so suddenly had put the entire crowd in a sour mood, but anticipation was still building since everyone wanted some action. Ghislain realized that a thrilling fight would help them unwind, and just like that, everything was ready. The historic clash between cousins began before a massive, roaring, and excited crowd. Naturally, people rushed to place bets. Cain was furious that Ghislain made this a cheap show. No mercy, he growled, warning his blade would not stop even if Ghislain begged. Ghislain met his warnings with complete and absolute silence, knowing that Cain's pride was his own downfall. Standing ready, Ghislain suggested they begin. The pure excitement in the crowd was electric, but a sudden, angry shout interrupted them. A bystander objected loudly, arguing that the betting pool was completely unfair. The bookkeeper sheepishly admitted the actual truth. Not a single person had bet on Ghislain. No surprise there, Ghislain was not shocked at all. Soon the crowd started demanding someone bet on Ghislain. Cain smirked, saying his cousin was completely worthless in their eyes. Instead, they began wagering on how many seconds he would last against Cain. But wait, watch this. A massive new bet suddenly dropped. The defeated mercenary Scoven bet on Ghislain, throwing him a knowing smirk. Next, another incredibly heavy pouch slammed onto the betting table as Helena and Belinda arrived. Ghislain was totally stunned to see his sister and her maid there. The onlookers gasped, instantly recognizing the lovely Helena. Belinda tried to stop her, whispering that this was too risky, begging her to reconsider. A thief watched them with annoyance as he walked past, while the arrogant Cain grew incredibly impatient to get things started. When the duel finally commenced, Ghislain noted that as the elder cousin, it would be completely unfair to strike first. Instead, he proudly drew his sharp sword, taking solid combat stance, calmly inviting his incredibly angry cousin to make the first move. Watching him, Cain scoffed, muttering that Ghislain was acting tough way too late. Charging forward like lightning, Cain struck, but Ghislain cleanly parried the heavy blow. Cain sneered, calling his cousin a pathetic and useless coward who was barely holding on. Off balance, the pressure of the strike forced Ghislain back as Cain pressed the vicious attack, but Ghislain deftly slipped past every single dangerous slash, ducking low. Cain launched a fierce kick but only met empty air, yet the spectators game over, the crowd still believed Ghislain could not survive much longer. Cain laughed, but watching him, Ghislain merely raised an eyebrow. Belinda was terrified. She desperately wanted the duel stopped. The thief gloated, sure that Ghislain was completely doomed against Cain. Once the kid ran out of breath, Cain would deliver the final blow. Wait for it, this exact play always secured Cain's victory. But mid-fight, Cain realized something. Ghislain was much better now. Cain quickly spun his sword, grabbing the blade to strike with force. Ghislain blocked the strike, but Cain suddenly yanked his weapon back. Ghislain was dragged forward by the momentum, unable to let go. With a massive burst of strength, Cain hurled Ghislain skyward. The crowd gasped in suspense, while Ricardo feared the absolute worst. Meanwhile, the thief was practically celebrating, expecting to see Ghislain crushed. Airborne, Ghislain began plummeting rapidly back toward the ground. Yet the young man remained eerily calm during the entire fall. Landing smoothly, he muttered that he had been too soft on Cain. In a single blinding flash, Ghislain closed the gap between them. He launched a strike so fast that Cain could not even block. Cain could not even track his movements, leaving the bandit stunned. Ghislain recovered instantly by channeling pure mana right into his legs. Letting out a heavy breath, Ghislain pointed out Cain's terrible weapon work. He was just bullying people with brute strength, and Ghislain wanted to fix that. Cain lost it. Enraged by the insult, he flew into a complete rage. Refusing to let some weakling talk down to him, Cain swung again. Ghislain spun fluidly and delivered a powerful kick right to Cain's side. He leaped right off Cain's hand, spinning midair to slash him. Furious, Cain tried to run him through, but the kid was too fast. Ghislain dodged the strike and stomped his foot heavy onto Cain's sword. This completely locked Cain's movement down. Ghislain still held his own blade. He unleashed a devastating, lightning-fast blow with his remaining hand. Direct hit, the strike landed clean against Cain's completely unprotected neck. Ghislain stared calmly as blood sprayed from Cain's fresh wounds. Pure chaos, the shocked stadium erupted over the sudden turn of events. Helena proudly asked the maid, Belinda, if she saw that incredible move. Even Scoven let out a quiet chuckle, leaving the thief completely furious. Cain knew the cuts were shallow, despite Ghislain clearly having the power to kill. He could not understand when Ghislain had acquired such insane mastery. For a long moment, an intense silence fell over the arena. But then, to Cain's total surprise, Ghislain tossed his weapon aside. He declared that their raw strength difference did not seem that large. So he decided to finish the fight using nothing but his bare fists. Pure disrespect, this sent Cain spiraling straight back into a complete rage. But Ghislain pressed on, saying fists would be plenty to teach him a proper lesson. Cain was utterly insulted by the blatant arrogance of this kid. Ghislain even offered to bet 2,000 gold coins on his victory. The stunned crowd immediately began whispering at such an outrageous wager. The duel takes a pretty bizarre turn. Honestly, the thief is completely thrown off. Actually, he is secretly thrilled. Ghislain is basically digging his own grave right here. Suddenly, the bets fly. Everyone wants a piece of the action now. Some back Cain, others quickly shift their support, betting heavily on Ghislain instead. Cain just laughs. Accepting the challenge, he rips off his cloak. But he keeps his weapon close, fully intending to slash Ghislain wide open. Belinda starts screaming out curses, loudly cheering for Ghislain. In a flash, Cain closes the distance, throwing a heavy punch at him. Ghislain just laughs, easy dodge. Cain has absolutely zero combat common sense. Cain tries to follow up with a kick, but Ghislain is too fast. He shifts his weight instantly, slamming a counter punch directly into Cain's leg. Now he prepares to strike again, ready to put his opponent down. His fist cracks Cain right on the chin, sending him crashing down. Cain is stunned. He has no idea where this guy learned to fight. The crowd goes absolutely wild, and honestly, can you blame them for believing? Ghislain stands over him. Get up, he says, we are not done yet. Cain is losing his mind. He drags himself up, shaking with rage. He lunges forward again, swinging his sword wildly to land a hit. Ghislain just slips every single strike. This makes absolutely no sense. Until recently, Ghislain was too terrified to even look at him. Now he is completely dominating the fight, holding all the power. Ghislain twists his arm back, driving a brutal knee straight into his ribs. Bloodied and broken, Cain still clings to his goal, kill him for his family. But he is completely powerless, unable to touch Ghislain at all. He just takes hit after hit, left trembling on the cold dirt. Ghislain walks over, grabbing him roughly by the hair to look him in the eyes. He whispers that he actually feels sorry for Cain's father, a good man. Years ago, their friendship was the only thing saving the Pertium family from ruin. But Ghislain points out that Cain does not care about those old ideals. Hearing this, Cain freezes as a sudden memory flashes back. Years back, literally, everyone tried to stop his father from helping those people. Yet his father still tried to offer them help just last week. Cain did not understand. He had begged his father not to do it. He demanded to know why his father was risking so much to help them. His father turned to him, silent for a moment, before giving his answer. He simply said he considered Ghislain's father a true friend. The memory cuts deep. Now, Ghislain raises his hand for another strike. Cain closes his eyes, bracing for the impact, but the blow never lands. Instead, Ghislain tells him that he hopes the lesson has finally sunk in. Cain stares at the extended hand in front of him, then slowly looks down. He quietly mutters that he surrenders. Nobody expected him to give up. Ghislain is stunned. The crowd erupts, celebrating the victory. Ghislain's family is crying tears of joy, but then a furious thug screams out. He stomps over, enraged that he trusted Cain only to watch him quit. But Cain tells him to get lost. He is done here, and he is walking away. The man raged, calling Cain a coward, just as Ghislain suddenly appeared. He stood right behind him, smiling as he declared it was time to collect. What was his, the man was completely clueless. Then Ghislain announced loudly that this generous guy was buying everyone food and drinks. Hearing that, the guy completely lost his mind. He screamed that he never agreed, demanding Ghislain take those words back. But Ghislain simply placed a heavy hand on his shoulder, speaking coldly. This was simply the price of defeat, and it did not even affect the bet. Ghislain reminded him that they still owed 2,000 gold coins on top of everything. Then he whispered a dark warning. Staring at the terrifying Ghislain, the man was completely paralyzed. Once he agreed to pay, Ghislain left him alone. By the very next day, Ghislain had the gold. He figured he could use it to hire a small mercenary squad. But earning gold that way would take far too long. Suddenly, Belinda and Helena walked into the room, and Ghislain looked up. He asked what they wanted, but Helena sarcastically questioned what Ghislain planned to buy with all that cash. Her brother asked if she needed something, but Helena claimed she was just curious. Suddenly, Belinda chimed in. It was obvious where Ghislain would blow it, bringing up Lady Amelia. Her birthday was coming, and Ghislain probably wanted to buy an expensive gift. While the girls kept teasing him, Ghislain himself stayed completely silent. Honestly, Ghislain was shocked to learn he even had a fiancé. He decided to ask them directly. Belinda rolled her eyes, thinking he was just pretending. But Helena clarified that they were talking about Count Riffeld's daughter. Hearing this, he froze in absolute disbelief as the realization hit him. He remembered her. Amelia was universally adored for her pure and gentle nature. But behind that act, she would eventually lead a massive northern rebellion and become known as the Witch of the North, joining Deline's betrayal to destroy Ghislain's entire family. Honestly, can you blame him for being absolutely furious? He asked when his father would return, hearing he had about a week. A week was plenty of time to make his move. He would visit the Riffelds, leaving Belinda utterly confused, since Amelia's birthday was still weeks away. He simply muttered that he was going to collect some debts. Meanwhile, Amelia was living her perfect daily life. She had just received new shoes, gifting them to a poor village girl. Amelia smiled, saying if anyone had the right to walk barefoot on these lands, it was her. Then she ordered the guards to feed and shelter the villagers. Suddenly, a loud commotion echoed outside. Stepping out, Amelia was met with a chorus of gratitude. Later at home, her legs were tended as Bernard praised her. The girl quietly admitted that while her father always demanded absolute obedience, she knew most people truly followed those who offered shelter. Bernard smiled, replying that since she had won so many hearts, he would gladly help her swing the family inheritance in her favor. The girl stared at him in silence, then delivered a swift. Amelia kicks him right in the face, demanding to know about his northern duel. Bernard apologizes, explaining that a victory could have lured the swordmaster over. He even kisses her foot, vowing that his sword will always serve her. But she just coldly asks him if this was how she raised him. Gripping his chin hard, she tells Bernard that he cannot afford to be weak. Bernard then reports that their merchant guild bought all building materials. They even bought off every single soldier stationed at the checkpoint. They paid off those who abandoned the Pertium lands, earning Amelia's praise. She tells him to keep up their harmless facade, but they are interrupted. A servant suddenly enters with a message direct from the main gate. Ghislain has arrived. Displeased, Amelia demands to know why he is here. She wants to know what that limper wants, leaving the servant sweating. The room goes quiet when they hear Ghislain wants to talk business. Soon after, Amelia heads down to meet Ghislain in the parlor. Ghislain sits opposite her and offers a polite greeting, but she ignores him. Even her pet cat hisses, and Amelia calls him rude for barging in. Ghislain calmly replies that he decided to bring her a special gift. Presenting a beautiful flower, he mentions he bought it from her storefront. In fact, he announces he will exclusively buy from her guild now. Amelia stays dead silent, her brow furrowed, before suddenly standing up. She coldly tells him she does not understand his meaning. His gift is accepted, so he should leave, but Ghislain just smirks. He tells her to sit back down, talk about a complete shift in attitude. She wonders if this is really the same weakling who once bled looking at her. Ghislain drops the bomb immediately. He needs 10,000 gold pieces. Amelia is outraged, demanding to know if this is her family's final will. But Ghislain says it only concerns him, reminding her she wouldn't marry him anyway. Amelia stops dead in her tracks, completely stunned by his words. Ghislain jokes that he would rather marry the knight guarding her door. Then he unleashes his massive pressure, but her cat cuts him off. The beast stands protectively in front of him, keeping up a fierce hiss. Amelia dryly retorts that some things should not even be joked about. Ghislain promises to keep all her secrets safe, provided he gets the loan. But Amelia refuses, instantly calling her trusted bodyguard Bernard into the room. Bernard approaches and greets Ghislain, who knows exactly how dangerous the knight is. He is Amelia's main support, holding power that easily rivals master swordsmen. Ghislain warns her that if he dies here, a major war will erupt. Amelia calmly retorts that they will simply frame it. They will say a bodyguard killed him for invading her quarters. She orders Bernard to get rid of him, and the knight draws his blade ready. Despite Amelia's extreme threat, Ghislain is not surprised at all. Instead, he prepares to fight, drawing his own weapon with calm focus. As Bernard watches him, an ironic smile plays on the knight's lips. Ghislain stares back at him, but suddenly senses a strange movement. A sudden stealthy strike comes flying at him directly from behind his back. A strike comes from his blind spot, the enemy blade slicing clean through the chair. The assassin keeps pressing forward, forcing Ghislain to execute a quick somersault. Midair, he drives his legs out, striking his opponent. A loud crash follows. The window shatters completely, hitting the assassin. Amelia and Bernard watch in absolute shock. Ghislain is furious that they actually sent an assassin to kill him here. Calling their hospitality utter garbage, he prepares to fight. Their blades clash instantly. Ghislain dryly notes that manners obviously are not taught in this household. Bernard snaps back that Ghislain was the first one to show disrespect here. Because of that, he deserves no warm welcome. Bernard lunges to strike Ghislain. But the boy dodges. Ghislain spins around for a kick, barely missing his target. He instantly launches a second kick, connecting solidly. Bernard staggers backward. The force of the impact stuns him. He always thought Ghislain was completely skillless. But right now, this kid is showing some serious skills. Cutting through his shock, Amelia orders Bernard to get serious and end this. She demands Ghislain's head right now. Under her icy glare, Bernard hesitates. But he quickly locks in, preparing to end Ghislain's life right here. Ghislain just chuckles, amused that a mere knight would speak to him like that. Bernard retorts that this is just an invitation to fight. Both brace themselves. Bernard charges first, closing the distance between them in a split second. But with lightning reflexes, Ghislain slips back just enough to dodge. Still, the blade scrapes by, leaving a thin cut on the boy's cheek. Bernard is surprisingly fast. Now, the real life-and-death clash begins. They exchange rapid strikes and dodges. Watching from the side, Amelia is baffled. Wait, how can Ghislain match Bernard blow for blow? She is utterly baffled. Suddenly, her face darkens. On the field, the fight only grows more intense. Ghislain blocks a lethal strike aimed straight at his face, then lunges forward. Bernard barely evades the counterattack, quickly moving to pin the boy's blade. Pressing down hard, Bernard thrusts forward to pierce Ghislain once and for all. But Ghislain simply sighs, asking why he is trying the same trick again. With that, Ghislain leaps high into the air, but he senses a shift. A sudden, terrifying pressure of mana begins to pour out of Bernard. Bernard smirks, declaring those aerial tricks will not work a third time. He easily repels the attack, slamming Ghislain hard onto the cold floor. The impact is incredibly heavy, forcing a painful grimace from the boy. Pressing his advantage, Bernard immediately strikes again without giving him a breath. But get this, Ghislain barely rolls away, leaping back to create distance. He never expected the knight to use raw mana to crush his move. Standing tall, Bernard remarks that the boy is certainly not what rumors suggested. Knocking Ghislain's blade aside, he notes the kid has real combat experience. These are practical, deadly skills, not just polished moves for show. But they will not work against him. This fight is already over. Ghislain realizes they have crossed a line. Bernard is aiming to kill. In close quarters, technique alone cannot bridge this massive physical gap. There is no point in playing nice or holding back anymore. Ghislain decides playing around is pointless. He warns that he is also out of time, surging forward. Suddenly, Bernard sees glowing mana and strange threads. Bernard realizes too late that Ghislain is manipulating threads, and in that split second, Ghislain's blade strikes the guard's neck. With a lightning-fast follow-up, the young warrior closes the distance and drives his knee straight into Bernard's face with crushing force. Bernard staggers backward, completely unable to comprehend how the boy managed that move. Suddenly, even Amelia starts worrying about her loyal knight, just as Ghislain draws his sword once again. He unleashes a brutal slash, pouring every ounce of strength in the blow, but Bernard holds his ground. Gripping his weapon tightly, he suddenly spins around to deflect the strike, managed to briefly push Ghislain back and break his momentum. But Ghislain easily recovers his footing, landing perfectly. Seeing this, Bernard shouts at Amelia to run, knowing he can no longer keep her safe in this fight. Bernard is unleashing everything, and Ghislain respects that this is the real deal. The veteran knight admits it has been years since he last faced such a worthy opponent. Realizing the danger, Amelia quickly turns and bolts from the scene. She is absolutely furious that Ghislain dared to humiliate her. The heiress assumes someone must have leaked secrets about her trade guild to him, believing the rumors that he had just gotten lucky before, but now she sees just how horribly wrong her assumptions were. Where are all her personal guards? She wonders what her stationed guards are doing, but rounding the corner, she stops. Every single one of them lies defeated on the ground, with a strange girl standing over them. Spotting Amelia, Belinda offers a casual greeting, but the heiress demands to know her identity, only for Belinda to bluntly tell her to shut up. In a flash, Belinda reappears right behind Amelia, pressing a cold knife against her throat. Startled, Amelia watches as Belinda rips away a hidden spider, shocked that the noble girl was actually still wearing it. She smiles, guessing that the upcoming engagement was the reason behind it. Belinda knows Amelia's own family despised her because she constantly attracted insects. So she made her own to get revenge, though it might just be trauma or desperate self-affirmation. Tossing the bug aside, Belinda tells Amelia it really does not suit her. She crushes the insect and demands full cooperation. Back in the fight, Bernard releases an overwhelming wave of mana, filling the room. Ghislain feels the air grow incredibly heavy as the knight's power peaks. Bernard scoffs, demanding to know how Ghislain dared call him a worthy opponent. He asks how a fallen noble could even stand next to Lady Amelia. Ghislain fires back, calling himself a true noble while mocking the lowly bodyguard. After a brief, heavy silence, the two warriors clash in a flash of steel. Pressing his offensive with sheer rage, Bernard commands him to stop dishonoring the nobility's name. His strikes are blindingly fast, raining down on his opponent. Ghislain barely manages to parry each blow, feeling the immense weight behind them. Every single attack carries the full, murderous fury of a desperate man. Bernard relentlessly presses his advantage, but Ghislain refuses to stay on the defensive. Tightening his grip, he unleashes a powerful parry, knocking Bernard's blade aside. He follows up with a heavy slash to end this, but the knight quickly counters, pulling off a brilliant maneuver that completely disarms his opponent. Ghislain stands shocked by the sheer force of the disarm as Bernard sneers, declaring this to be the young noble's absolute last moment on earth. Aiming directly at Ghislain's neck, but Bernard's face suddenly twisted in pure confusion. He was ready, totally prepared to take a direct hit. He intentionally used his shoulder to deflect the blade. Ghislain countered immediately, deeply irritating his opponent. With absolutely no room to breathe, Bernard barely managed to parry Ghislain's sword again. Then he landed a brutal kick to his ribs, mocking him as nothing but a flashy amateur. Real veterans fight differently from show-offs who just swing swords. Ghislain crashed heavily against the wall with full force, but he refused to give up. Still standing, Ghislain quickly analyzed his opponent. Bernard's speed and sequence completely controlled the tempo of this battle. And when their heavy swords crashed and locked together in a clash, it felt impossible to break the bind. With his current mana, Ghislain knew he stood zero chance. But that only applied to the raw energy he possessed at that exact, fleeting second. His opponent was completely blind to one massive, game-changing secret. Ghislain possessed a secret, extremely rare mana technique. The second he activated it, his speed instantly went off the charts. He flashed beside Bernard, sparks flying as their steel clashed. Within a few lightning-fast seconds, Ghislain managed to completely disarm the stunned veteran knight. Bernard stood frozen in shock, unable to process what just happened. How did he channel that much mana? Suddenly, Ghislain's blade tip rested against his forehead. With his blade at Bernard's head, Ghislain paused as Belinda and Amelia entered. Amelia told Ghislain he could take the petty coins and get out of her sight immediately. Ghislain shot back, asking why she had to make this difficult. He lowered his heavy sword as Belinda sneered, openly mocking their pathetic little lovers' dispute. Ghislain simply replied that they just had a slight difference of opinion. Then he dropped a massive bombshell on Amelia that was guaranteed to ruin her entire day. His price had just skyrocketed to 20,000 gold pieces. The second he strolled out, absolute and unrestrained chaos instantly erupted inside the private palace chamber. Pure rage, Amelia began violently smashing everything around her. Bernard quickly stepped forward to apologize for his failure, but the furious girl completely blocked him out. She muttered that Ghislain had become a completely different person. When Bernard suggested reporting this to Duchess Deline, Amelia stepped up and violently slapped him. She hissed at him to shut his mouth because the Duchess was terrifying. She admitted they were secretly working together to crush the Pertiums. But the mere thought of their commercial guild secrets getting leaked made her absolute blood boil. To prevent that ultimate disaster, the young warrior Ghislain absolutely had to be permanently silenced. Bernard immediately accepted her demands and began mapping out his condition. The target still had a deep shoulder wound and several minor cuts requiring urgent medical attention. Since he burned so much mana, he would definitely need time to recover. Bernard warned that using knights was too risky. Amelia agreed, wanting to hire dogs perfect for dirty work. A dark, heavy chill ran down his spine as he slowly realized her incredibly twisted and cruel plan. She demanded they deploy desperate war orphans with absolutely no family, status, or future. She wanted 12 highly skilled mana users gathered immediately. Bernard nodded in agreement, his dark mind already spinning to design the ultimate inescapable ambush. He promised Amelia he would prepare everything, and she was practically drooling. Desperate to see Ghislain pay for humiliating her, meanwhile, Ghislain kept walking, quietly bandaging his fresh wounds he could not stop thinking about. That snake Amelia, the others looked worried, but he waved them off. He told them he was fine, since the wound was worth the massive prize. And the risk had paid off. Ghislain was now sitting on a literal mountain of gold. He would love to strangle Amelia for her betrayal, but starting a war was bad business. They were already dealing with barbarians, so Ghislain needed to handle this mess without causing a massive bloodbath. This time he was going to use Amelia instead. Belinda watched him in silence. Out of nowhere, she asked if his plan had actually worked out. She reminded him he had ordered her to secure the perimeter and seize Amelia. Ghislain agreed that was the plan, before turning to ask Fergus about the rest. But the moment he spoke, a searing agony suddenly ripped through his entire chest. Ghislain collapsed, leaving everyone panicked. Honestly, who would not be? Now he finally understood the terrifying drawback of unlocking that third mana core. While he was desperately trying to figure out a safer way to build his mana, Belinda suddenly grabbed his wrist. She wanted to check his pulse. His mana flow was a complete mess. Suddenly, a soft, warm light glowed from her palms. Ghislain watched her, slowly piecing together what she was doing. But a wave of nausea hit him hard, followed by another sharp spasm of pain. Instead of coughing up blood, he gasped out a cloud of dark, heavy air. He realized the blockages in his meridians were gone, cleared by her incredible mana compression. His mother had hired Belinda, so he knew she was special. But he had never figured out her true identity. Still, in a world this dangerous, having a powerhouse on his side was a massive win. Belinda looked at him and promised she would always have his back. Then she asked why he went to such extreme lengths for all that gold. Ghislain went quiet for a second before explaining that Amelia was their golden goose. This left both Belinda and Fergus completely stunned. She warned him that he was playing with fire, but Ghislain guaranteed Amelia would stay quiet. He stared at Belinda, asking if she trusted him. She agreed, and wanted to know what he planned to do with all that wealth. But when Ghislain mentioned the monster forest, Belinda paled in sheer horror. Ghislain told her they needed every penny to clear that cursed place. Fergus chimed in, saying it was suicide since people had failed to clear it for generations. Cutting him off, Ghislain asked about the special request he had made earlier. The old man looked puzzled for a second, then pointed toward the back, saying the target he was looking for was already waiting right inside. Ghislain wanted to go immediately, but Belinda insisted they go back home first. Ghislain reminded her that Amelia would definitely seek revenge for what happened. Belinda argued that they could take her in a fight, but Ghislain shook his head. The game had changed, and he needed a highly capable leader. That was why they had traveled deep into this barren wasteland. It seemed totally abandoned, and nobody answered the door, but they had definitely arrived. Suddenly, the heavy door swings open to reveal a rough, bearded man. He gruffly demands to know who's there. Everyone but Ghislain freezes. Belinda whispers that he looks like a total wreck, not a legendary commander. But Ghislain quietly insists this is indeed the legendary captain. Before they can explain, the man slams the door shut, telling them to scram. As the captain yells at them to go, Ghislain calls out Jillian's name. That single name makes the old captain freeze, slowly turning back toward him. Ghislain extends his hand with a confident smile, saying he has missed him. The mere mention of his past team leaves their companions absolutely speechless. The Ratatosk mercenaries are legendary, still famous long after they disbanded. And their undefeated leader is none other than Jillian, whom Ghislain intends to recruit. But before he can even make the offer, an axe comes flying through the air. It brushes right past Ghislain, tearing his clothes in a sudden, terrifying warning. The room goes dead silent as Jillian growls, demanding how he knows his name. He demands to know why they're here. Belinda frantically tells Ghislain to back off. She thinks the wild captain is completely insane, but Ghislain absolutely refuses to budge. He calmly says he can save Jillian's daughter, they just need to listen. The disease is brutal, burning fevers, coughing up pints of blood. They writhe in pure agony until they die. It's called the endless punishment. Inside, the young girl screams. Her agonizing cries echo through the small room. Ghislain rushes in, desperately wrapping his arms around his suffering daughter, Rachel. Ghislain steps inside. He realizes there is still time to stop this tragedy. In his past life, Ghislain took his own life after Rachel passed away. Looking at this rundown room, it's clear Ghislain spent everything on her care. Rachel screams that she just wants to die, unable to endure the pain. Ghislain knows there isn't a second to lose. He must act now. But suddenly, Belinda grabs his shoulder. She begs him to stop. She demands to know how they can help when even high priests failed. Ghislain pulls away, declaring that he is her only shot at survival. He looks Belinda in the eye, asking once more if she trusts him. Though confused, she nods. Ghislain hands her a list of rare ingredients. Belinda gasps. In this era, everyone believes this disease is completely incurable. But Ghislain knows a cure will be discovered decades down the road. Since the remedy was famous in his past life, he remembers every step. The ingredients are incredibly expensive, but thankfully they have plenty of gold. Ghislain prepares the mixture. Once finished, he hands the antidote to the captain. He looks at the desperate father, simply stating that Rachel must drink it. Without a second of hesitation, Ghislain pours the medicine down his daughter's throat. At first, nothing changes, but then the black spots slowly start to fade. They vanish one by one, and Rachel's pained expression finally softens. Everyone in the room watches in absolute shock as the deadly marks disappear. Ghislain stares at his daughter, unable to believe this miracle is actually happening. Ghislain gives a quiet nod, confirming that the treatment is working perfectly. A tearful Ghislain asks how this is possible when holy magic was useless. Ghislain explains that saintly power has limits, unlike the medicine of the future. The patient's sheer will to survive is holding on. Suddenly, the man's hands begin to tremble. Can his daughter be saved? Ghislain promises she will be in 2 months. At those words, hope flares. Shaken by the sudden shock, he collapses. He falls straight to the floor, begging Ghislain to name his price. Surely a noble did not travel all this way for nothing. With nothing left but his own body, Ghislain offers his absolute, lifelong service. But Ghislain shakes his head. He only needs a leader for his mercenaries. In that silent moment, Ghislain stares deep into the young noble's eyes. What does this kid want? Ghislain silently runs a hand through his braided hair. With his other hand, he raises an axe and clean shears off a braid. When the others look at Ghislain, they freeze, completely unable to believe their eyes. Talk about an instant transformation. He looks like a completely different beast now. Spinning around, Ghislain marches toward the opposite side of the room. He asks if anyone followed Ghislain inside, maybe some hidden enemies lurking nearby. Ghislain replies that everyone who traveled with him is already in this room. Ghislain asks if he has any jealous rivals, and Ghislain simply smirks. There will be plenty more of those coming. Suddenly, Ghislain snatches a heavy spear. He hurls it, shattering the wall and pinning something to a tree outside. Ghislain yanks the rope tied to the shaft, dragging a hidden figure inside. He grabs the spy by the throat. A desperate, choked gasp is all the man manages. Who sent you? The spy only stammers that this is impossible. Ghislain asks what to do with him, but Ghislain tells him to stay quiet. The young noble already knows exactly who sent this rat to spy. He prefers not to get his hands dirty, but Ghislain steps forward. I will handle it. With a cold look, he squeezes the spy's throat. A sickening snap, it is over. Ghislain bows low to his savior. Belinda watches, chilled by how effortlessly he took a life without any hesitation. Why does Ghislain need someone this terrifying? Meanwhile, Ghislain swears his absolute loyalty. His life belongs to his new master. Ghislain nods, welcoming his new commander. Ghislain's rivals soon learn their entire scout squad has been wiped out. Panic flares, but their captain steps in to settle the nervous soldiers. The men bow and apologize for the noise. The captain just scoffs. There is no way Ghislain sniffed out those hidden spies all by himself. Ghislain, hearing that name, sends the captain into a blinding rage. He grabs a soldier, shaking him and demanding to know if this is true. The terrified scout nods, swearing he saw it. Surprisingly, the captain grins. The beast is back. Meanwhile, the carriage moves deep into the forest. Belinda complains about the cramped cart, saying Ghislain is no simple merchant. A simple blade is enough. Ghislain tells her to stay quiet for now. They absolutely need this carriage to transport young Rachel safely, so she must be patient. Every bit of this will be useful. Belinda asks if Amelia sent that spy. Once Ghislain nods, she sighs in frustration. This is a massive problem. The dead spy wore the mask of the infamous Wildcat Guild, a lawless group of smugglers, killers, and vicious black market dealers. Belinda warns they are a dark syndicate pact with brutal retired mercenaries. Their ranks, that is why Belinda warned Ghislain to stay on guard. But Ghislain shrugged it off. No worries, Ghislain had his back. Onward they went until a sudden figure blocked their path. Ghislain instantly sensed danger, but the attackers already had their target. They aimed straight for him. Calmly, the veteran warrior reacted. Reaching back, he drew his sword and axe to block both blows. He instantly struck back. One brutal swing sliced an assassin clean in half. As those bloody pieces hit the ground, the driverless cart kept rolling forward. High above, other bandits sliced ropes to send a massive tree crashing down. Belinda shrieked in absolute terror, convinced they were about to get crushed. But with a sharp yank on the reins, Ghislain pivoted. The cart veered aside as the trunk slammed down nearby. Close call. Ghislain was completely unfazed, yet dozens of enemies now surrounded them. Their captain stepped forward, calling Ghislain's name. Ghislain met his cold gaze. The man spat, calling Ghislain a coward who disbanded for his daughter. Stepping down, Ghislain calmly claimed he did not understand the threat. The captain sneered. Because of Ghislain, his entire life was ruined. And yet, his old friend did not even seem to recognize him. Ghislain offered only silence, assuming he was playing dumb. The boss raged. He ordered his men to tear him apart. Ghislain moved to assist. Ghislain waved him off. As the crowd swarmed, a heavy surge of pure, crushing mana exploded from his body, instantly wiping out his attackers. Unfazed, the remaining bandits kept charging, aiming to block his blade. But Ghislain swung his heavy axe, instantly carving the lead assassin completely open. He severed the next man's hand and buried his axe deep into another neck. Deflecting the next blade, he swung his axe and severed the attacker's hand. The captain was stunned. Ghislain's legendary power had not faded at all. He ordered a flank attack from both sides. Ghislain instantly mounted. They watched in confusion as he grabbed a huge weapon from the saddle. With his axe raised, he charged headlong into the panicked bandits. Gripping the haft with both hands, he threw his entire weight behind. A devastating sweep, cutting down several men at once. Total chaos. One thief yelled to spook the horse, but Ghislain gave no mercy. Even Belinda looks completely horrified by the sheer brutality of this. Just then, an assassin lunged from the branches above for a sneak attack. But Ghislain reacted instantly, raising his heavy shield to block. The furious captain swore that Ghislain would not escape his wrath. Vowing to end him, he leaped forward and slashed at the horse. Severely wounded, the poor animal collapsed, throwing Ghislain to the ground. As Ghislain hit the dirt, blades lunged at him, but he blocked the strikes with his axe, slamming his shield into his opponent's ribs. The brutal impact sent the assassin reeling back, utterly shocked to learn that Ghislain no longer led Ratatosk. He demanded to know who did. Ghislain muttered that the past was dead. He was just a simple helper. Ghislain's humble assistant now. That revelation only made the captain more furious. He charges forward, swearing to kill Ghislain. Their final battle begins. With absolute ease, Ghislain blocks every single heavy blow. The assassin spits that their old squad collapsed without him. He lost everything, his entire purpose was destroyed because of Ghislain. Ghislain stays silent, trading heavy blows with his former comrade. But Viego is incredibly fast, deftly dodging before kicking. A direct hit, the shield simply cannot withstand the pressure. A hole rips through it. Viego screams about his dedication to their old unit. He poured his soul into it, only for Ghislain to become someone's lapdog. Unforgivable betrayal. The assassin will never forgive his former brother. He glares daggers. Viego discards the useless shield while Ghislain readies his blade. Ghislain strikes back. As he dodges, the assassin suddenly closes the distance. He appears right in front of him, but Ghislain quickly slips away. Ghislain lunges with a counterattack, but Viego deftly dodges again. Like a madman, the mercenary glares directly at his target. You used to be strong, but times have clearly changed. While you coddled your daughter, I spent every second training. You are no match. Viego kicks the blades stuck in the dirt. They go flying at Ghislain, who barely blocks them barehanded. Now watch, the relentless assassin instantly closes the distance. Sensing him, Ghislain swings, but Viego leaps high to escape. Slashed from above, the mercenary is determined to end this. But Ghislain catches the blade barehanded and asks a heavy question. Is this petty grudge truly your only reason for seeking revenge? In that second, Viego realizes Ghislain has been holding back. Too late, a devastating punch slams directly into his face. The brutal impact sends him flying backward into a nearby tree. Standing over him, Ghislain admits he genuinely does not understand. You had so many chances for payback, so why wait? Viego just laughs. His old captain is completely blind to the truth. He says he came before, but there was no leader left, just a pathetic old man. He asks where the legendary commander he used to idolize disappeared to. With a silent nod, Ghislain throws his blade to the ground. He serves another master now, but he will still honor their bond. Just like Captain Ratatosk, Viego grips his sword, eager to fight. He charges for one last clash, but Ghislain easily deflects it. Viego screams that this is the battle he has been waiting for. They clash at lightning speed as Ghislain lunges forward to strike. His rapid blows are dodged, and Viego's wild counterattacks miss too. But eventually, Viego's defense slips, and Ghislain lands a clean hit. Intense pain contorts his face, yet he pushes forward anyway. Ghislain raises his axe, whispering that he still remembers their squadron. He honors Captain Ratatosk and calls out his old comrade's name, Viego. Hearing his real name, Viego smiles right before Ghislain delivers the end. For a quiet moment, Ghislain stands over him. Suddenly, footsteps approach. Belinda and Ghislain walked over to praise his effort, with the girl excitedly chattering about making good money selling their loot. Meanwhile, Ghislain offered an apology for dragging out the battle, but Ghislain did not mind at all. In fact, Ghislain had easily blown past all expectations. Years ago, the story's about. Ghislain always focused on his legendary rise as the mercenary king. Then he suddenly asked if Ghislain remembered that specific man. Ghislain confirmed he was an old comrade of his. Hearing that word, Ghislain paused to reflect. He wondered what his former companions were up to, since they all had separate lives before. Someday, Ghislain vowed to bring them together again. 2 days later, they reached the borders of Pertium. Ghislain asked if this was his home, and Ghislain nodded in agreement. The young lord felt glad to finally have a place to return to, since he never had that comfort before. Ghislain silently stared back at Ghislain without saying a word. Breaking the silence, Ghislain asked for his thoughts on these territories. Ghislain replied they looked decent, though Ghislain insisted they were actually quite terrible. Ghislain knew these borders faced non-stop raids from brutal barbarians. Yet the reality was far worse than rumored. Ghislain wanted to fix this, which is why he asked Ghislain for his help. It would be a grueling fight. But the young master was fully resolved to rebuild. Suddenly, Belinda spotted something up ahead and let out a scream. Looking closer, Ghislain looked deeply surprised. Standing directly in front of him was his father. Soon, the council began, debating how to deploy their troops, claiming the wild Rayfolds were completely useless beasts that constantly attacked their own guards. Ghislain silently listened to their bickering. With a slight smirk, he realized absolutely nothing had changed here. He looked young but possessed decades of battlefield experience. Ghislain thanked the nobles for their hard work before turning directly to his father. The count gave him a cold, piercing glare. Ghislain remembered how terrified he used to be of his father's harsh face, but now he finally understood the truth. It was all from the crushing weight of leadership on his shoulders. The count demanded to know where Ghislain had been. For an entire week, Ghislain calmly replied that he visited the Rayfolds. His father asked if he caused any trouble, which he denied. Suddenly, a noble interjected, revealing that Ghislain had won a massive sum of gold dueling cane. He mockingly asked if he had already spent it. Ghislain replied he only went to settle a quick matter with Amelia. Another elder chimed in, reminding him of his duties as the sole heir. Suddenly, the count cut them off. He directly questioned Ghislain about the lingering issues. The count asked if it was true that he executed Jamal and Felipe for trying to sell Helena. Memories of those bloody nights flashed in Ghislain's mind. Another noble scoffed that Ghislain was too weak to fight them, so he tricked them into killing each other. While they were traitors, Ghislain knew the court was still displeased. Ghislain shrugged and muttered that was basically how it went down. The elder felt smugly vindicated. Suddenly, Ghislain heard unexpected praise. His father spoke up, saying keeping Helena safe was the only priority. Ghislain stared in shock. His father had never praised him before. Seizing the rare moment, he decided to ask for a favor, but a noble warned him if it was about money, that was out of the question. Even Ghislain agreed that Ghislain had too many sins. In his fury, Ghislain rattled off his past mistakes, and Ghislain had nothing to say, because every single word was true. Still, Ghislain wanted to respect his family and ask his father for permission first, even though he planned to go ahead with it anyway. But he kept Belinda completely in the dark, knowing any leak would cause massive trouble. His target was a hidden spot in the monster forest, packed with rare runic stones. These magical minerals were highly coveted, driving just about everyone absolutely wild. They were essential for crafting almost any high-grade magical tool on the market. Historically, the Deline family held a tight, absolute monopoly on these valuable deposits. But Ghislain wanted change. Still, Belinda hated being kept in the dark. Even so, she ultimately agreed to follow his lead. But when he talked about hiring an army, Ghislain hesitated, warning him about the unwanted attention. But Ghislain had the perfect group in mind, planning to pick them himself. Ghislain instantly realized which group the young master was talking about. Those mercenaries were lethal, prone to tearing clients limb from limb. Despite the danger, Ghislain was determined to hire none other than the Cerberus mercenary squad. The very next day, they set off to tame them. The mercenaries camped right on the outer borders of the territory, waiting. As Ghislain and Ghislain approached, watchful eyes spotted them immediately. The guards snickered, thinking these fancy travelers had simply lost their way. One scout sneered, calling them soft aristocrats, but looking closer through his spyglass, he saw a sudden, terrifying blur of motion. Things were about to get ugly fast. Ripped through the air, total chaos broke out in the mercenary camp. Ghislain had lunged forward like lightning, grabbing one guard by the head. He squeezed with terrifying, bone-crushing force, then with a casual flick of his wrist threw the man aside. Seeing this insane strength, the mercenaries tensed up. Realizing the old man was incredibly dangerous, they quickly drew their weapons and surrounded him. Suddenly, their leader shouted that no noble could just walk up and threaten them. He snarled that these uninvited guests would not leave this place alive. Then, his arrogant smile instantly faded. Why? Because Ghislain stepped forward and calmly asked who was in charge. The mercenary boss walked right up to the young noble, sizing him up. This kid's sheer confidence completely threw them off. Then the boss smirked, muttering that they were dealing with a clueless aristocrat. Without warning, he swung his heavy chain weapon, throwing it straight at Ghislain's head. As the massive steel weight flew toward him, Ghislain did not even blink, pure confidence. Suddenly, the chain veered off course. Ghislain had stepped in. The mercenary watched in absolute shock as a sword cleanly pierced his steel chain. Ghislain knew things would turn violent. He told Ghislain to handle them, but spare their lives. Taking the order, Ghislain gave the chain a hard, sudden yank. The giant mercenary was dragged forward, completely losing his footing. Ghislain effortlessly launched the man into the air, wrapping the chain tight around his neck. He blasted the leader with raw mana. Seeing this, the rest of the squad rushed in. But Ghislain grabbed their leader's body and hurled him right into the charging crowd. The mercenaries went down like dominoes. Just like that, Ghislain cleared the field. Ghislain turned his gaze to the remaining men, making them freeze in terror. Dismounting his horse, Ghislain demanded to know how much longer he would have to wait. He insisted they bring their boss out immediately until a voice suddenly piped up. With a sigh, the man complained about his ruined sleep, introducing himself as Cower. He asked what Ghislain wanted, to which Ghislain replied he wished to hire them. But Cower was furious, since Ghislain had just brutally beaten up his men. He calmly suggested that nobles should learn a thing or two about manners. But Ghislain shot back that it was only a warm greeting to ensure obedience. Cower chuckled, asking if Ghislain planned on a complete massacre next time. With that out of the way, Cower agreed to hear out the proposal. Ghislain revealed he needed them for an operation in the Beast Forest. But Cower demanded to know who this kid was to waltz into their territory. Only when Ghislain finally introduced himself did the entire camp go quiet. That silence didn't last long, as everyone suddenly burst out laughing. They laughed, saying his crazy antics as a useless noble were not surprising. Cower stated there was absolutely no place for nobles like Ghislain here. He declared negotiations officially over, refusing to hear another single word. Ghislain stayed quiet, then he asked Cower if he was simply afraid. Ghislain chuckled, mocking the reputation of their squad as being wildly exaggerated. Caught off guard, Cower quickly changed his tune to save face. He suggested discussing the price, since they were mercenaries after all. But Ghislain only scoffed, remarking that the weak always seek excuses. Cower retorted that he was just playing along, but Ghislain had ruined it. He demanded that Ghislain pay for the damages and get lost. But Ghislain was not about to leave empty-handed. Instead, he called Cower out. Ghislain invoked the sacred Morana duel. Cower asked if he even knew what that meant. Ghislain smiled, knowing exactly what it was, the ultimate mercenary custom. It was a traditional deathmatch, where mana was entirely forbidden. Their dominant hands would be bound together within a small designated circle. Stepping outside meant instant disqualification, and often both fighters ended up dead. The rule was absolute: the loser must obey the victor. So Ghislain officially challenged Cower. Ghislain watched on in complete shock. In their world, backing down from a Morana meant eternal dishonor. You could practically feel the tension in the room right now. Finally, Cower accepted, declaring they would grant this noble his wish. Within minutes, the battlefield was set for the brutal duel. With their hands firmly bound together, both men stepped into the circle. Ghislain watched in silence as the mercenaries roared, cheering on their leader. Cower smirked, warning Ghislain that basic tricks would not save him now. Suddenly, Cower forcefully yanked the bound rope, pulling Ghislain right in. Whispering close, Cower bragged that he had already won 5 duels like this. Ghislain yanked back with massive force, claiming 5 was a joke. He dragged Cower close, but the giant retorted he had hundreds of victories. The moment the starting signal echoed, their expressions instantly shifted. In a flash, both men lunged forward, targeting the throat of their enemy. While dodging the incoming attack, looking at Ghislain, confusion filled his eyes. It was clear he never expected such a reaction from a mere aristocrat. No match, both traded identical blows, neither finding any opening. Blocked it, trying to make Ghislain lose balance. Coward yanked the young man's arm. But despite those constant provocations, Ghislain stood strong when Coward tried to attack from behind. Ghislain dodged just in time. Right after, Ghislain immediately launched a counterattack, but the mercenary leader also managed to dodge. Coward then tried to kick, but Ghislain reacted, blocking the blow with his own leg. Yet right after blocking it, he felt a sharp pain shoot through his leg. Coward knew the kid was tough, but winning hundreds of times when even a single victory was hard seemed completely impossible. Backing off, he told Ghislain that if someone wants to brag, they had better show something believable. The crowd roared, cheering for Coward and demanding he execute the noble, but when Ghislain shot a deadly glare at those mercenaries, they shut up instantly. Silence fell. Ghislain kept watching. Deeply worried, the fight was going terribly for Ghislain, really bad. The ring was too small, no mana allowed, strictly off limits, so everything came down to pure physical strength and raw combat skill. With bound hands, Ghislain's movement was limited, barely able to block Coward's strikes. Completely dominated, Coward controlled the fight, but if things got too dangerous, Ghislain was ready to intervene. Grabbing Ghislain's arm, Coward prepared to drive his blade into his ribs, but as he lunged forward, Ghislain leaped clean over the mercenary, landing perfectly on his feet. But now watch. At that exact moment, the pain in his leg flared up again. He knew that without mana to protect his body, pain would just pile up with every single block. Coward saw it. One look at Ghislain's face said it all. He found these desperate attempts to resist utterly pathetic, yet this was the most stubborn noble he had ever faced. Coward knew exactly what Ghislain thought. This fight was a strict monolith duel, so as long as Ghislain kept blocking, the severe damage would only accumulate. His leg was cramping up, his face showed it clearly, but Coward wanted him to keep fighting. More fun that way. He twirled the sharp blade between his fingers. Coward adjusted his grip. Then he threw a heavy punch that Ghislain managed to block. When Coward aimed directly for his head, Ghislain ducked. Coward immediately shifted his hand to follow the kid's movement. Then Ghislain blocked the strike with his bare hands, taking the initiative. Coward countered the move, locking Ghislain's arm. He followed up with a vicious kick, but just like before, Ghislain blocked it with his leg. Once again, sharp, blinding pain ripped through his muscles. Game over. Coward grinned, declaring the fight done. Thrusting the blade straight toward Ghislain's neck, he moved for the kill. Just as Ghislain anticipated, he prepared to draw his axe. Yet at that exact second, a smirking smile crept onto Ghislain's face. Out of nowhere, he dodged Coward's deadly strike. Shifting his stance in a flash, he retaliated. That was when the first blood of this intense duel was drawn. Staring at his wound, Coward froze. For a second, the entire crowd was just as shocked. Coward recovered and lunged to try. Coward lunges again, but Ghislain easily slips away. Another heavy strike, and yet another clean dodge. Ghislain counters with a swift strike, cutting Coward right across the chest. A second slash lands, leaving the crowd completely stunned. The entire atmosphere shifts. Everyone thought Coward was dominating. Desperate now, the big man swings once more. Another miss. Ghislain immediately drives his shoulder straight into his chest. Then he unleashes a quick barrage of punches right to his face and neck. Raising his hand, he suddenly drives his dagger straight through Coward's palm. Screaming in rage, Coward swings wildly, unable to comprehend what is happening. Just moments ago, Ghislain could barely stand on his own 2 feet. Ghislain, watching closely, understands everything perfectly. Coward's explosive movements have severely strained his muscles, slowing him down with every lunge. He's losing his speed, while Ghislain remains completely cool and collected. Ghislain never thought a massive size advantage could be shut down like this. Suddenly, Cower's own men shout that they are getting bored of this. Ghislain notes that Cower's stubborn resilience is actually pretty impressive. Anyone else would have run out of mana and surrendered by now. But Cower snarls that anyone breaking their sacred rules has absolutely no right to exist. Ghislain just smiles, admitting he is actually a bit impressed by that. Cower openly admits that his pure combat skill is definitely lacking here. However, he grins, raw skill isn't the only way to win this. He suddenly spins around, grabbing Ghislain and pulling him close. In this ritual, stepping outside the boundary lines means instant defeat. No matter how incredibly skilled Ghislain is, if he's thrown out of the circle, he's done. Believing he's got the upper hand, Cower is absolutely sure of his victory. But Ghislain swiftly twists, shifting the angle of Cower's free hand. In that split second, Ghislain almost hits the dirt, but not quite. Instead, he launches a powerful two-footed kick straight into Cower's chest. Using that momentum, he swings himself right back inside the line. Cower stumbles backward, giving Ghislain the perfect opening to slam him down. Dust settles, revealing that Cower's foot has crossed outside the circle. Cower is absolutely furious. Meanwhile, Ghislain calmly claims his victory. Enraged, Cower demands to know exactly who this kid is. Ghislain just scoffs, asking why Cower has so little respect for his master. With a sudden tug, he hauls the mercenary leader back to his feet. Confused, Cower protests that the fight is over. Too bad, Ghislain isn't done. He smiles, the fight isn't over because he hasn't left the circle yet. And now it is time to properly train his brand new subordinate. He lands a devastating punch right to Cower's face, sending him crashing down. Complete shock, Cower desperately tries to stop the boy. He gasps out a reminder about the rules, but gets cut off instantly. Ghislain strikes again, mockingly asking if they're playing by rules now. He asks if Cower expects rules on a real, bloody battlefield too. Before Cower can object, Ghislain reminds him that a master's words are absolute. Cower tries to scream that he's insane, but gets cut off once more. The relentless beatdown goes on, while the rest of the mercenaries just watch. Nobody knew whether to step in, so they just watched. Then Cower screamed, begging. He begged Ghislain to stop. Hearing this, Ghislain yanked Cower close and lifted him high. Hoisting him off the ground, he coldly noted Cower still had not left the circle. Cower glared directly at Ghislain, then turned to face his men. Barking orders, he commanded his people to kill the young lord. They stood ready to strike, but suddenly, Ghislain blocked their path. He warned them in a dark, severe tone that he would kill anyone who interfered. If anyone dared to lay a hand on Ghislain, they would die. Fear froze them instantly. They were rooted to the spot, making Cower realize just how dire things had become. Trembling slightly, he turned his head and locked eyes with the ruthless Ghislain. It was a silent dare. Ghislain threw another heavy punch, ready to connect. As the blow approached, Cower flashed a strange, ironic smile, completely giving up. He passively took the hits, remembering how spineless other nobles always were. Whenever he intimidated those arrogant narcissists, they would immediately beg. They would grovel, and Cower took immense pleasure in humiliating them. He loved emptying their pockets, earning himself a reputation as a rabid dog. His brutal strength made him famous, but now he had no idea how things failed. He could not understand how he had messed up so badly with Ghislain. Blood covered the ground as Cower lay motionless, leaving his men incredibly worried. Ghislain wondered if that was enough, then suddenly spun toward the nearby mercenaries. He ordered them to bring bandages, explaining that Cower would die without help. Hearing this, the mercenaries quickly snapped back. Ready to obey, they watched Ghislain silently look back. He quietly watched Cower, assessing the grim situation with a very stern look. Meanwhile, the mercenaries jumped to carry out Ghislain's commands. In their world, strength spoke louder than law, and Ghislain knew how to use it. He asserted his authority perfectly. Later, when Cower finally woke up, Ghislain handed him a piece of paper, telling the beaten man to sign it. Cower hesitated at first, doing nothing but staring blankly at Ghislain. He clicked his tongue in pure annoyance and finally signed the paper. Cower carelessly tossed the paper back, but Ghislain did not like the attitude. He found the gesture highly disrespectful. Cower winced and looked away. Turning his head, Cower quietly asked Ghislain to take good care of them. Nodding, Ghislain gripped Cower's hand, instantly spooking the battered man. Squeezing tight, he declared that they were officially family now. To him, family meant acting as one. A few days later, the mercenaries gathered. They assembled on the outskirts of the Pertium estate, completely clueless. Nobody knew why the meeting was so early, and many complained about skipping breakfast. Then someone announced they were being hired by the heir of Pertium. The mercenaries immediately started bickering about how easily they could fleece the young lord. Some laughed about stealing his gold, while others just listened in complete silence. One mercenary piped up, suggesting they choose a representative to deal with him. Suddenly, Gordon appeared before the surprised crowd, stepping forward with confidence. He confirmed they had the right place, noting their obvious lack of discipline. Laughing at their lazy lives, and the angry mercenaries shot right back. Same old story, some fool made completely unreasonable demands. Gordon stepped in, he warned them not to cross the line. He volunteered to represent them and subtly intimidate the new employer. The others just had to back him up, many readily agreed. With Gordon doing the talking, they felt completely in control. But their little meeting was suddenly cut short by a shout. Someone was approaching. A lone rider slowly appeared on the horizon. They instantly recognized the guy by his fine clothes. It was Ghislain. The mercenaries scoffed at him riding alone, but Gordon waved them back. He told his men to stand down so he could teach this noble a lesson. But right as he stepped forward, Ghislain's own companions suddenly appeared. Rising up from the horizon, a whole squad of mercenaries rode right behind him. Those distinct elongated helmets meant only one thing: the elite Sibaru squad. Wait, why on earth were these ruthless rebels acting so humble? They fell in line right behind the aristocrat as the group approached Gordon. Ghislain pulled up his horse, slowly scanning the mercenaries with an appraising look. He looked directly at Gordon and asked if he was the leader here. When Gordon nodded, the young noble casually asked for his name. Gordon answered with a bit of hesitation, making Ghislain freeze for a second. Staring intently at the mercenary, the young lord suddenly gave him a friendly punch. He called Gordon's name impressive, and then he introduced himself. Finding out he was actually the sole heir of Pertium shocked everyone nearby. Turning his mount around, Ghislain ordered all the scattered soldiers to assemble. He called out over his shoulder they were going to clear the monster forest. Soon Ghislain was preparing for the tough campaign, donning his heavy armor. In that moment, he knew everything was finally set for the grand hunt. The base camp was established, supplies were loaded, and the troops were ready. Fully geared up, the young lord stepped outside to face his waiting men. He asked Belinda for a head count. They had 150 mercenaries, plus 40 elite fighters from the Sibaru's squad standing ready. Ghislain then asked if she had sent their exact position to Estevan. Surprisingly, the knight did not object, even offering to cover their entry. Ghislain ordered the men to line up and pointed toward the dark woods. He announced they were clearing this territory, asking if they knew the dangers. Endless hordes of vicious monsters lurked inside. Honestly, something way worse than mere monsters. Hearing this, many mercenaries panicked, fearing they would never make it back. Furious at their constant whispering, Belinda sharply reprimanded the chatty soldiers. Ghislain calmly intervened, promising triple pay for those who stayed. The men could barely believe their ears, but Belinda was instantly stressed. She knew they had already spent almost all their funds on preparations. Ghislain whispered back that it was just motivation, but completely worth it. Besides, if they actually pulled this off, they would be filthy rich. He looked at his maid with a sly smile, asking if she believed him. Sighing deeply, she admitted she had no choice, while Cao chuckled nearby. That promise was completely absurd, and nobody knew how Ghislain would actually pull it off. Then Ghislain raised his voice, shouting to his men while gesturing toward the massive woods. He ordered them to draw their axes, and soon everyone began hacking away at the trees. With a mountain of work ahead of them, even Ghislain rolled up his sleeves to help. After slicing straight through a heavy trunk, he brought it down with one powerful kick. He smiled as warm sunlight finally broke through the thick, dark canopy overhead. Turning to his crew, Ghislain ordered them to press on. He quietly recalled, reading Delphine's journal, which mentioned this endless forest and a dream that one day they could purge all the evil spirits lurking inside, but right now his focus was making money by cutting a direct route to the valuable mineral deposit. He needed to crush the greedy schemes of those envious rivals from Pertium. This profit was vital. Coward noticed that even Ghislain was sweating alongside the workers. Chopping down massive trees, the mercenaries wondered if he was leading by example or just showing off. Hearing them whisper, Belinda immediately snapped, ordering them to shut up and work. Their attitude deeply annoyed her. She approached Ghislain, asking why he was doing hard labor when they had hired help. If he kept this up, the mercenaries might lose their respect for him. Ghislain just laughed it off. He told her that extra hands made the job go faster. Belinda did not press further, but a thought crossed her mind. It really seemed like Ghislain had a map of this entire region in his head. Coward mocked them, muttering that the lady was coddling the boss while they were led like dogs. Straight to hell. Right then, Ghislain whipped around and faced him. He brutally smacked Coward across the face with the heavy log in his hand. As Ghislain walked away, Coward rubbed his jaw and furiously asked if that was a challenge. Still, Ghislain was pleased. The operation had run incredibly smoothly. Even the great Delphine, who united the land, first targeted this mysterious forest. Ghislain originally never understood that choice, but finding Delphine's secret journal changed everything. It revealed the precious fossil deposit and allowed him to prepare. But this absolute silence was beginning to make him uneasy. He possessed the ancient memories, sure, but he lacked actual field experience. He warned the crew to keep their guard up, especially since the trees were growing tighter around them, forcing the mercenaries to scatter further apart. The shadows lengthened. One mercenary complained that it felt like midnight already. Another laughed, claiming the local rumors about these woods were just massive exaggerations. But as they laughed, Gordon froze in his tracks, staring blankly ahead. A tense silence hung over them before he slowly turned back around. Gordon pointed out the obvious. They had chopped down dozens of trees. Nobody got why he was bringing this up, but they all nodded anyway. Then Gordon asked a chilling question. Where exactly was the cleared trail behind them? The moment they realized the truth, absolute dread washed over them. Before panic could set in, Ghislain commanded everyone to ready their weapons. The veterans drew their blades instantly, while some novices stood there confused. Ghislain ignored their questions and focused entirely on Gordon, giving a sharp warning. If you stand there any longer, you are dead. Get back now. Gordon did not hesitate. Gripping his wooden log, he carefully stepped backward. Right then, smash, he accidentally slammed the log into a tree. Startled by the sharp crack, he quickly dropped the log and crouched low. The other soldiers jumped in shock, calling Gordon an idiot, but Gordon was the most terrified of all, spinning around to face the trees. Nothing happened. Absolute silence. No further sounds broke the quiet, but the others were on high alert, sensing something was wrong. Ghislain remained silent, watching and waiting to see what would happen. Even in this tense moment, some stayed arrogant. One mercenary scoffed, pointing ahead, claiming the client was afraid of tiny noises. There was nothing, he declared, but trees ahead. Frowning, Ghislain told him to back down immediately, otherwise they would both die. But the mercenary questioned Ghislain's warnings, thinking he was just trying to control them easily. Then suddenly something thick wrapped around his waist. He could not even react before he was violently yanked backward into the shadows. Ghislain knew these monsters had undetectable presences nobody could have predicted. The sudden arrival of the entity destined to turn them into food, unless, of course, they understood exactly what stood right before them. Ghislain shouted, revealing the creature was a deadly ant dino. It turned out these beasts had already surrounded them, terrified. The mercenaries desperately tried to escape, every single one of them. Feared becoming their next meal, so they fled. I mean, who wouldn't? Without looking away, the monsters shot their branches straight at them. In an instant, several mercenaries were grabbed and dragged away, straight into the monsters' gaping maws. The only one they missed was Gordon, who miraculously clung to a rock. His comrade rushed over, shouting at him to hold tight while trying to hack the branch off. He swung his axe at the vine and a loud crack echoed. The branch was completely fine. But his weapon shattered. Before anyone could react, Gordon lost his grip on the stone and they dragged him down. He screamed in absolute terror, while the others watched, helpless. But then Ghislain charged in. Wielding his mana-infused sword, he cleanly sliced the branch. Then, in a mid-air twist, he slashed the beast's eye. Dark blood gushed out as they tumbled to the ground. Everyone watched Ghislain's actions, quickly realizing the eyes were their weak spot. Ghislain then roared, ordering everyone to snap out of it. He commanded them to gather and raise their shields, forming an impenetrable wall against the vines. Ghislain commanded them to defend and await his next orders. Swiftly, everyone immediately readied their shields. Meanwhile, Ghislain located Cower and demanded to know where the oil lamps were. Once he confirmed they had them, he ordered them thrown to set the monsters ablaze. Meanwhile, the soldiers were starting to panic under the monsters' relentless gaze. Waiting for the perfect moment, Ghislain finally gave the command to launch. At his shout, they unleashed a volley of lanterns at the beasts, but to their absolute shock, the monsters swatted the lanterns away. The mercenaries stood frozen, realizing that at this rate, they had never set the beasts on fire before. But as the last lantern crashed down, the monsters retaliated, whipping their thick vines directly toward the crowd. But right at that moment, Ghislain leaped forward, effortlessly slicing through the deadly incoming vines. Belinda stood ready, drawing her daggers. She took steady aim right now and drove them right into the eye of a monster. Ghislain immediately ordered Belinda and Gillian to help Cerberus prepare the next round of lanterns. Ghislain himself would draw their focus. Belinda was deeply worried about him, shouting for him to stay safe, when a wave of vines lunged his way. Ghislain cut them down instantly, but the relentless beasts kept striking, forcing Ghislain to keep moving constantly to avoid getting trapped. Darting forward, he suddenly realized the massive beast actually had legs. Everyone gasped, thinking he would be crushed, but Ghislain reacted instantly, easily cutting the leg of the beast. Then he vaulted into the air, driving his blade deep into its eye. But while he fought, the other creatures swarmed his position. Turning to the soldiers, Belinda ordered them to drop the lamps now. The men acted quickly, throwing fire the beasts could not block. This time, instantly, the area erupted into roaring flames. The mercenaries cheered as their attacks landed perfectly. Ghislain spun around, shouting to his men, "Do not stop, keep pressing the attack." Before long, the entire woods were consumed by fire. The mercenaries stood in disbelief that they were actually winning. But they also worried the fire would spread, and trust me, that was a real danger. Across the entire forest, Gordon was absolutely thrilled that these wooden beasts were completely powerless against the flames, but Ghislain yelled out, warning them to stay alert. "This is far from over," he barked, explaining that the true terror was about to show its face. Right on cue, thick, boiling steam hissed out from the ground. Blinking through the fog, the panicked soldiers assumed the beasts had somehow extinguished the fire. Seeing the chaos, Belinda and Gillian rushed beside Ghislain, As Belinda frantically asked what was going on, Ghislain quickly explained the situation. Only. Their tough outer shells could resist the heat, but once the fire breached their watery cores, steam exploded, revealing their terrifying shapes. The exposed beasts opened their jaws and let out a deafening shriek. Seeing them still standing terrified the exhausted troops. Ghislain commanded their focus, raising his blade high and shouting for them to ready their weapons. Swinging his sword to clear the heavy steam, he announced that the real battle was starting now. Without a second thought, he charged. Watching him sprint fearlessly into danger, the entire squad froze in sheer disbelief. Sure, he made it sound easy, but facing those giant things, absolutely insane. Yet Coward bolted forward alongside Cerberus, thrilled to finally join the fray. Gordon watched in shock as even his maid rushed to the front lines, deeply concerned. For Ghislain, right then, Gillian barked at the hesitant mercenaries, demanding to know why they were stalling. He firmly reminded them that this was a direct order from Ghislain, and they had to follow it. The mercenaries hesitated, but after a moment, decided to plunge into the meat grinder, betting their lives that Ghislain had a plan. With their outer armor completely gone, Ghislain shouted that the monsters could not survive without constant mana flow. Now they were nothing but oversized wooden scarecrows waiting to be cut down. The hours that followed became a chaotic blur. Ghislain knew even a moment of hesitation meant death. With deaths mounting, his task was clear. He had to erase all lingering doubts. He kept pushing forward, forging a fierce belief capable of making the impossible happen. The final beast collapsed, total silence. Everything went completely still. Exhausted, the troops whispered in utter disbelief about their victory. What would happen next? He did not even look back at them. Heavy footsteps echoed, and the soldiers immediately fell into line. Behind him, Ghislain warned that the forest entrance was teeming with monsters. Panic gripped the men, but Ghislain calmly told them to just follow. Stunned by his raw confidence, the mercenaries froze. Then they moved. They pushed deeper, hacking through the dense woods. More monsters, no problem. They cut them down. After every fight, Belinda carefully treated Ghislain's wounds. Suddenly, a massive, grotesque creature, resembling a giant rat, blocked their path. Panic flared instantly. Would these horrifying encounters ever come to an end? But Coward and Gillian did not even hesitate. They charged straight in. Moving like lightning, Coward closed the gap and sliced the beast's leg. As the monster stumbled, Gillian slammed her heavy shield over its jaws. Then Ghislain stepped in with a lethal final blow. Is everyone all right? They nodded. A veteran warrior barked at the others to stay near their employer. Unless they wanted to die out here, Gillian smiled, noting their excellent progress. Coward shrugged. Practice makes perfect after all. Right after another quick skirmish, Ghislain ordered them to keep clearing the path, yet one mercenary was sweating. Paralyzed by fear, he stared at his wild companions. These people are insane. Honestly, you can't even blame him. Soon, the group broke through to a lake. Exhausted, the men ran toward the water, but Belinda raised a cautious hand. Ghislain did not share her worry. Everything was unfolding exactly as he planned. This water was the primary checkpoint on their route, making it the perfect camp. As they rested, the hired cutthroats noted the last 2 nights had been quiet. Too quiet when Manos quietly suggested they should all just desert. The others scoffed. He tried to explain that putting their lives on the line just was not worth it. No amount of coin can buy back a dead man. Gordon countered that their employer kept his word, so fleeing now made 0 sense. Still, Manos was angry they trusted him. He figured Ghislain had an agenda, using them to chop down a forest just to win some political points. A different fighter pointed out they already spent the advance payment. A mercenary does the job they are paid for. Manos admitted Ghislain fought well, but argued it was sheer luck. He was absolutely sure of his doubts. When real danger strikes, their boss will throw them away as shield fodder. Grim silence fell. Manos kept pushing, claiming fighting alone was complete suicide. But suddenly another mercenary cut him off, speaking with deep conviction. Without our boss, he declared, we would all be corpses by now. He pointed toward Ghislain. The young leader was actively dressing a wounded warrior. Belinda quietly complained, saying they should save that highly expensive medicine. But Ghislain disagreed. We brought this healing ointment to save lives, not hoard it. He finished bandaging one man and warmly called over the next injured soldier. The soldier wondered, would a selfish boss really waste such priceless medicine? Cheap cannon fodder. The other mercenaries also agreed there was zero proof. Ghislain would ever abandon them. Manos was absolutely furious because that outsider had just ruined everything for him. Ghislain stepped in and told the squad to shut up and rest. Then he turned toward Jillian and Cower. She asked if he was doing all right, since if she were in his shoes, she would have ripped out the tongue of Manos. But Ghislain told them to let it go. They had far bigger things to discuss. He revealed that just as he had predicted, ever since they entered the dark forest, monsters had ambushed them day and night, but these last 2 nights had been eerily quiet. Hearing this, the group grew deeply tense. Jillian realized they had just crossed into the territory of nocturnal beasts. Ghislain confirmed her fear, looking back at their quiet camp, warning that they were in grave danger. Everything seemed calm with everyone asleep, when suddenly a faint rustling sound shattered the silence. Gordon opened his eyes in shock, seeing a lamp hurling straight toward him. He dodged instantly, rolling aside and avoiding any harm, but then he suddenly felt a chilling weight slide onto his shoulder. The entire camp woke up to his terrifying scream, finding Gordon wildly swinging an axe to fend off some invisible force, desperate to scare away his unseen attacker. As they rushed over, he frantically screamed that the monster was right there. But no one saw a single thing, telling him there was absolutely nothing there. Gordon stared back in utter disbelief as the others shook their heads. But just as they started walking away, other guards arrived, insisting it was real. One mercenary felt a strange presence, watching a nearby lantern vanish into thin air. Before long, the other mercenaries gathered, buzzing about the bizarre events of that stressful night. They felt certain they were not alone out here in the dark. And Ghislain completely agreed. The second the commander appeared, the worried crowd parted, allowing him to order a full briefing inside his main strategy tent. While the mercenaries gathered outside, Gordon was inside, stunned to learn the truth. Imagine being surrounded by a massive horde without seeing a single one. Ghislain explained this was their specialty, the true terror of these beasts. He suspected they had been tracked ever since crossing the nearby lake. These shadows belonged to the Fowlers, creatures capable of merging with pure darkness. They move in hundreds, devouring light itself, which made Belinda realize something. She finally understood why their lanterns were vanishing. Cower wanted to strike first. But Belinda hesitated, questioning if they could actually afford to wait. Our leader retorted that attacking blindly would only provoke the creatures further. Yet Jillian was shocked to hear there was a way to defeat them. Belinda had already handed out the special scrolls Ghislain had prepared. Now their leader was ready to unveil the real defense plan. He explained that the Fowlers were systematically destroying their light sources. This effectively trapped their positions, since they were severely outnumbered, though. Defending the entire territory was now completely out of the question. Jillian quickly noticed they were strategically positioned right next to the lake, meaning they were not completely cut off from escape. The situation was not hopeless, and Ghislain believed they still held the advantage. Every single mercenary was shocked by this incredibly bold claim. Ghislain then proposes dividing the squad into 3 distinct groups. The defense team holds ground, shield-bearers and crossbowmen form a wall. It is an impenetrable shield to protect their vulnerable center. Meanwhile, the combat unit will concentrate its forces for battle. They will launch a devastating strike from the left flank. If the center holds, Cower muses, this plan might actually work. But suddenly, Belinda cuts them off, reminding them of the rules. Fighting these beasts in pitch darkness is entirely useless for them. Instantly, all eyes snap to Ghislain. Then, Cower suggests using mana instead. Ghislain reassures the young girl, showing off magic. Scrolls, everything is ready just as the last lantern. Dies, swarms of beasts quickly close in, stepping forward now. Ghislain remembers a crucial detail from the diary of Delphine. These fowlers absolutely detest light, and his next command exploits that. On Ghislain's command, everyone rips open their magic scrolls. The monsters look up in sheer terror, then in the next instant, a blinding light engulfs the battlefield, making them rise. They howl in agony, unable to bear the burning flash. The darkness recedes, exposing the hideous true forms of the beasts. As the light fades, crossbowmen react to their advance. Bracing for impact, they unleash a lethal volley of bolts. They are ordered to stand their ground until the end. Right at that very moment, Ghislain prepares to make his move. He shouts that they can finally see the monster's true forms. Instantly, the warriors plunge into battle, and a brutal clash begins. Leading the charge, Ghislain is the first to slay a beast. These fowlers can hide in darkness, but they are physically fragile. Knowing this, he orders his men to wipe out every single monster. Ghislain nimbly dodges their relentless claws, fighting like a demon. But there are too many for him alone. Luckily, Belinda is right there to cover him, carving a path through the enemy. After her attack, Belinda turns to assist Ghislain with lightning speed. Ready to strike down more beasts with a single sweeping blow. Ghislain knows that the elite warriors of Pertium are backing him. The soldiers obey without question, slaying dozens of these foul creatures. Even so, many enemies remain, and the mercenaries cannot understand where these beasts are coming from, struggling to keep up defenses. Soon the monsters break through, but that is when help arrives. Ghislain and his core team charge in, slaying the beasts. Talk about a perfect entry, seeing him instantly restores their fighting spirit. They know that with Ghislain leading them, survival is guaranteed. Immediately, Ghislain orders his squad to expand and surround the beasts. Squeezed from all sides, the panicked fowlers actually try to retreat. This surprises the mercenaries, but Ghislain frowns at their retreat. They are too smart to just flee. He orders Belinda to track them. Belinda points out their horned leader, suggesting they should just let the beasts go, but Ghislain warns that these creatures will keep hunting them until they are totally exhausted. Since they cannot survive another long battle, Ghislain wants to end it right here. Hearing this, Belinda stays quiet, amazed by how much Ghislain has grown, but she quickly snaps out of it and accepts his dangerous command. She fires a grappling hook that wraps tightly around a high tree branch, allowing her to launch off the ground and soar high into the air. This height is perfect to spot all the beasts, and she finally locates her main target. Instantly, she takes aim, throwing a heavy rope to bind him. Thanks to her incredible accuracy, the noose wraps perfectly around the leader's neck, giving Ghislain the cue to strike. With a devastatingly swift move, he delivers a fatal blow. In its final moments, the beast shrieks in agonizing pain, seeing their boss fall. The remaining fowlers screech in terror, frozen rather than attacking. With their leader dead, Ghislain commands his team to wipe them out. Instantly, the mercenaries charge forward. Unwilling to lose any military glory to their comrades, the brutal clash rages until dawn. Only then does Ghislain slay the very last valor monster. Every single fighter did incredibly well. As news of their victory spreads, the entire camp erupts in pure joy. Relieved and celebrating, Ghislain's closest allies rush over to ask if he is all right. Ghislain praises their efforts, then orders the Sibaru's squad to scatter the beast corpses around their camp to deter other predators. Jillian explains the strategy to Cow, noting that since fowlers are top-tier monsters, using their remains is a brilliant way to protect themselves. Cow is annoyed, feeling Jillian treats him like a fool. Meanwhile, Ghislain reflects on their progress. They have been in this deadly forest for over 10 days now, and with the Fowlers crushed, their path to the ancient ruins is finally clear. He stares out at the beautiful sunrise, but trust me, this peace will not last. He simply cannot believe that their grueling journey is already nearing its end. Just then, Belinda reports that 3 mercenaries are missing, though the Subaru's squad is fully intact. Smiling, Cal remarks that such success is expected under a commander of his caliber. Still, nobody knows where those 3 missing men actually went. Gordon realizes that Manos is among the missing, but they cannot find any corpses. Another fighter scoffs, pointing out that fleeing from a battle is classic Manos behavior. Honestly, it is no surprise at all. Deep in the woods, the runaways think Manos, admitting they would have surely died if they stayed, but as they try to catch their breath, Manos urges them to keep moving while the main squad distracts the beasts, but suddenly his companions freeze completely, ignoring his commands. This immediately pisses Manos off, but before he can yell, one of the men slowly raises a trembling hand, pointing into the deep shadows. When Manos turns around, he locks eyes with a colossally massive beast. He is absolutely paralyzed with pure horror. It is easily the most gigantic creature he has ever encountered, and it is staring right at them. Meanwhile, Ghislain's squad pushes deeper. Cal is surprised to see how seamlessly everyone works together. Naturally, Jillian cannot resist teasing him about it. Cal laments that dismissing such talented mercenaries after this job would be a total waste, but Ghislain reveals he plans to recruit them as his personal guard. Most people believe simple sellswords stand no chance against a disciplined army, but their hard-earned experience proves otherwise. Suddenly, Cal's scouts return with some alarming news. They had scattered monster corpses everywhere. Cal noted that their strategy seemed to be working since they had not run into any beasts, but Ghislain remained constantly on high alert, praying his bad feelings were wrong. Right at that moment, Belinda approached him. She was scouting ahead to report if there was anything, and it turned out she had actually discovered something. Hearing this, he immediately ordered his team to advance as fast as possible. Just like that, they reached their destination. Seeing the sight, the mercenaries were totally speechless. Ghislain calmly declared that this massive chamber was their target. At last, Cal was astonished to find such incredible wealth here, but Jillian reminded him that every single step had been meticulously planned out. Belinda asked how. Ghislain knew. Just imagine seeing that many legendary runes in one spot. But suddenly, a strange man appeared before them, warning them not to pass. Ghislain grew suspicious at the sight of him. Suddenly, the man collapsed, leaving the mercenaries deeply worried. Recognizing Manos, they rushed right toward him. However, Ghislain immediately held them back, ordering the entire group to fall back. He began to disperse the heavy smoke in the area. Once the fog cleared, they saw countless bones scattered across the cave floor. Witnessing such a horrific sight, they were shocked and wondered what had happened there. Apprehension filled the air, and Ghislain warned they would have to bleed for those stones. Judging by the sheer scale, a terrifyingly powerful beast was behind this. Still, Ghislain could not recall any mention of this in Delhi's diary. Turning around, he prepared to give a command, but he did not have time to finish. An enormous python was staring directly down at them. Zero warning, Ghislain instantly yelled for everyone to scatter. In a flash, Ghislain charged forward, leaping onto the monster's body. He launched himself off its scales and struck its head directly. But his strike barely left a scratch. The others were completely stunned, watched in shock, realizing not even magic could pierce those thick scales. Meanwhile, the python tried to swallow him whole, but Ghislain retaliated as it bared its venomous fangs, spraying poison everywhere. He barely managed to dodge the deadly poison, but when he turned back around, he saw the serpent lunging. In that split second, he managed to block the blow. Still, the beast pinned him hard against the ground with its tail. Seeing this, Belinda panicked for the young noble. The massive serpent continued to thrash, forcing the mercenaries to desperately dodge its heavy blows. Belinda and Gillian scrambled to help people escape, the only sounds reaching Ghislain were the screams of his men fleeing in terror. Now he knew who owned those stones, though he had not expected a colossal python. Pythons usually stayed deep in the forest, but this one was not backing down. Besides, if they retreated now, their entire journey would make no sense. Ghislain locked eyes with the giant snake and warned it not to interfere, unleashing the power of his manacores. Ghislain prepared for battle. The monster lunged with violent speed, but he managed to slide past its massive jaws, slashing deeply into one of the beast's eyes. Instantly, the python lashed out, trying to crush him with its heavy tail. The python strikes hard. Fortunately, Ghislain blocks every single blow. He has no idea if he can actually win. He does not care. His sense of duty demands that he stand his ground in this fight. All eyes are locked onto Ghislain as they watch in suspense. He is fighting entirely alone. The clash rapidly drains his strength. Suddenly, both freeze, but Ghislain knows his mana is nearly depleted. He will run dry before slaying this beast. Then, voices call out. The mercenaries rush forward, Belinda begging Ghislain to fall back. She promises they will handle the snake, but Ghislain sternly commands them back. His sudden order leaves them completely stunned. Why did he say that? Gillian demands an explanation, but Ghislain cannot protect them right now. He simply cannot handle this threat while shielding them and refuses to let them die. When they ask about him, Ghislain insists he can face the serpent alone. Belinda knows their survival is a miracle, yet his reckless drive puzzles her. Why is he pushing so hard? Suddenly, the python fangs bare. Ghislain screams for everyone to run, expecting the worst to happen. But wait, the mercenaries aren't about to let their boss die. They stand tall, declaring they will face this nightmare by his side. Never have they served such a noble leader, and Kaitor wants that treasure. With riches on the line, Gillian offers to distract the monster. She aims to create a crucial opening, begging their leader to trust them. Ghislain falls completely silent, then he shocks the group. He calmly lists its deadly traits, noting its thick scales and lethal venom. A single missed strike means instant death, which deeply moves Belinda. But Ghislain points out the beast is wounded, with one eye already shredded. Once this expedition ends, they are all going home together. These words instantly ignite the soldiers' fighting spirit, stealing their resolve. They hold the line against the beast, allowing Kaitor to slash its flesh. The creature thrashes in agonizing pain, unable to focus its attention. Before it can recover, Ghislain leaps forward, targeting its remaining healthy eye. The python cannot react in time. Even flawless plans can fail. If he hesitates for even a fraction of a second, they all die, and he refuses to let that happen. Completely blinded, the massive serpent lunges upward, fueled by sheer rage. Armed with knowledge of the future, Ghislain carries a heavy burden. Suddenly, the giant beast snaps its jaws, swallowing him whole. Just as despair sets in, a blade suddenly erupts through the serpent's skin. Drenched in toxic venom, Ghislain slices his way out of the beast's stomach. Witnessing this miracle, they realize this young man is indeed the future of Pertium. Far away at the castle, furious nobles complain about his arrogant behavior. He does whatever he wants, but another noble questions their anger. The young heir has already been deep inside the forest for 2 entire weeks. Had Scoven not lied, they would have dragged Ghislain back long ago. Lord Pertium silently absorbs the shouting, his expression growing incredibly grim. He is deeply worried about his son. Suddenly, the heavy doors burst open. A panicked knight rushes inside, urgently calling for everyone to look outside. Seeing it with their own eyes, everyone stood shocked as he confirmed Ghislain's return. Meanwhile, the young heir was already rushing back to their castle. Soon, he stepped directly inside the count's busy meeting room. He stepped forward to greet his father first of all. Offering a brief apology, he explained his actions were necessary, but the others were furious. To them, a simple excuse did not justify disobeying a direct military order. An angry knight argued his reckless actions put the entire region at serious risk. Beast invasions from the forest could have started, but Ghislain quickly shut him down. He pointed out that he survived and no monsters had crossed their borders. Infuriated, another lord stood up and asked if he found this situation amusing. Even if they got lucky, they believed his defiance remained completely inexcusable. Pulling out a document, it turned out a count grew suspicious after Ghislain visited Amelia. After investigating, he broke off the engagement entirely and cut off all of their financial support. Ghislain stared at the paper, realizing the threat in his hands was absolutely genuine. It was clear Amelia would ally with anyone, even their enemies, to crush him. This sudden move completely ruined his plans to use leverage against her. If he had hesitated for even a moment longer, he would have been cornered. The Count demanded to know if Ghislain had any defense left. Others yelled that the massive sum of gold must be returned to the Riffolds. But Ghislain calmly delivered some shocking news. He had already spent every coin. He explained that the entire fortune funded his dangerous expedition deep into the monster forest. Complete silence filled the room before Ghislain quietly offered a simple apology. Before he could finish, an enraged noble suddenly grabbed him tightly by the collar. He demanded to know how an heir could ruin their entire territory so easily. Another declared that Ghislain was just a criminal. But Ghislain coldly cut him off, prompting his father to ask what he meant. Without a word, Ghislain called Belinda into the chamber to present their findings. She set a box down, and opening it caused everyone to gasp. He presented them with incredibly high-quality runestones. Stunned, the lords accused him of purchasing these gems using Amelia's stolen funds. But the young master revealed he actually discovered a massive deposit in the wild. A skeptic argued that a few stones still could not save their failing estate. Ghislain just chuckled, admitting that a single box indeed would not be enough. But here is the crazy part. He was holding a massive surprise outside. Dozens of mercenaries were busy unloading massive piles of precious crystals. Belinda proudly confirmed this entire fortune was harvested in just 2 weeks. Beyond the riches, Ghislain declared his actions saved their land from collapse. He assured his shocked father that this bounty would easily secure their territory. The elders sat in absolute disbelief, realizing their long struggle for survival was finally over. Right then, a wealthy count placed a heavy hand on his shoulder. He began showering him with fake praise, asking if the trip was tiring. Shrugging him off, Ghislain announced he had several strict conditions for them. He demanded Scoven and Ricardo be freed immediately since they only followed orders. Furthermore, the dangerous forest must remain open to all without any restriction. To top it off, he declared he would take full command of their security. Recruiting mercenaries was fine, but they absolutely hated that Ghislain wanted his own private army. They tried to explain that Ghislain should be on his knees, begging for their forgiveness. Instead, the young lord was standing tall and demanding absolute, unconditional freedom. Ghislain immediately shot back. He was just building a system that would finally free them. No more relying on Rafford if their petty whining delayed things. It would end up hurting the entire county's finances. Desperate, they turned to Ghislain's father. Right on cue, his mercenaries approached. Gillian stepped forward to ask for further orders since the cargo was nearly loaded. Meanwhile, Cal wanted to know what they should do with the giant python's remains. Ghislain told them to separate the beast's venom, blood, meat, and skin immediately. That stopped any rotting. Seeing this, Randolph noted that Ghislain's massive mercenary army was incredibly impressive, though he could not fathom how someone so young could command such power. Honestly, his father could only stare at him in silence. Finally, he admitted to his son that subduing those fierce fighters must have been brutal. But Ghislain simply replied, without those mercenaries, nothing would have succeeded anyway. With that, the Lord turned and dismissed everyone, telling his son that this Time he would turn a blind eye, but there would be consequences if he disobeyed again. Ghislain respectfully thanked his father for the leniency, at long last. This grand mansion belonged to him, truly embodying the fierce spirit of the North Wolf. That legendary title was only granted to those who guarded the northern borders of the Kingdom of Luania. Back then, Ghislain's father fought completely alone. With barely any military force, he kept defending the realm, isolated far from his beloved wife and son. Now, with the hard work finally finished, Ghislain ordered his exhausted crew to prepare for their departure at a moment's notice. However, his loyal companions begged him to slow down and rest. Belinda reminded him how hard they had worked to extract the deadly poison, but he just smiled, telling her that he was counting on her, before walking past them to lead the way. Of course, news of their legendary stone hall was bound to trigger chaos. That was why Ghislain needed to amass unmatched power, ensuring absolutely no one would ever dare to cross them. But as that ambitious thought crossed his mind, his body suddenly gave out and he collapsed. Soon, the news swept the entire region. The partial conquest of the monster forest was confirmed, meaning a confrontation with the hostile degrades was now inevitable. The War Council debated this fiercely during their emergency meeting, not knowing how many of their people survived in those savage lands. Then, a scout reported 2 vassals and a knight were trapped. If the degrade prince died inside Pertium territory, it would instantly trigger a brutal territorial war. Surprisingly, Sam was put in charge of the entire operation. This shocked the council, as they never expected their ultimate trump card to be played so early. Some protested that the decision was far too rash. But they were quickly reminded that the monster forest changed everything. Dolphin was pulling the strings now. Desmond ordered everyone to brace for war, demanding to know if anyone else had caught wind of the situation. Meanwhile, Amelia absolutely lost her mind when the disastrous news reached her. She sobbed directly into her assistant's arms, forced to beg her own father to cut off all support for Pertium, but he coldly dismissed her pleas. Amelia sighed, quietly admitting she let her feelings get the better of her. But she accepted what was done, knowing it was final, her night. Then asked for her command. She knew those newly dug magic stones would pull Pertium straight out of ruin, but a major hurdle remained. They had no buyers yet. The discovery was too fresh. Amelia pointed north, noting there was only one real market up there. To offload these resources, the colossal Crimson Magic Tower, these crystals, were vital for research, and magic towers took supply very seriously. Their target shifted from Ghislain himself to the convoys carrying the cargo. Her knight argued that with 2 towers up north, focusing on one was foolish. Amelia countered that Ghislain would bypass that specific tower, since it had already lost all of its former glory. Now, she planned to strip Ghislain of everything. Meanwhile, the young lord lay asleep. Trapped in a fevered dream, Ghislain relived the terrifying nightmare. He saw the moment. He was swallowed by the python. Inside, his magic fought the venom, burning it away on contact, but the toxic fumes still lingered. Ghislain fought to stay awake. Everything he loved depended on this mission. Since he could not escape the toxins, the poison flooded his mana. He tried to neutralize the poison, forcing his core to spin faster and faster. He actually converted the deadly venom into a raw, volatile fuel, strong enough to withstand a mana blast. Suddenly, his eyes snapped open. He was alive, pushing himself up. He struggled to piece things together. His mind was foggy until he looked up. There sat Helena. Seeing him awake, she blurted out how he had collapsed right after returning, but right now she did not care. Helena was just overjoyed he was alive. Ghislain stared in silent disbelief. As he opened his mouth to speak, she shoved him back and dashed out the door, yelling that Ghislain was finally awake. He frowned, shocked to learn he had been out for 2 whole days. He had pushed himself past his limits, and his body simply gave out. Yet his physical state felt incredibly light, almost fully recovered. Healing this fast in 48 hours was flat out impossible. Not only was he healed, but his mana reserves had completely exploded. It felt like the core essence of his magic had evolved. He realized his energy had bonded with the python's ancient power. If cheating death meant gaining this kind of power, the risk was worth it. Honestly, if he plays this right, his strength will skyrocket past any limit. But first, duty called, after 48 hours of resting his business. Word of those magic stones had surely spread. He had to act. He needed to hire mercenaries immediately. Suddenly, he heard a knock and called. Belinda inside, but she did not enter alone. His father followed closely. Relief washed over his father's face to see his son finally awake. Ghislain, however, stared in pure shock. His father quickly explained that Belinda shared everything about the python fight, expressing immense relief. But Belinda still looked deeply worried after his sudden, violent collapse. But Lord Pertium cuts them off, telling Ghislain they need to talk. It turns out he has a request, leaving Ghislain completely caught off guard. Before long, Ghislain finds himself facing this highly unusual situation. Usually, he would actively dodge his father to escape his endless lecturing. Surprisingly, his father apologizes, but Ghislain simply dismisses the gesture. He casually asks what his father could possibly want from him this time. His father only stares in silence, then quietly looks away without saying a single word. Ghislain remembers his late mother's words, wondering if this was her meaning. She told him ages ago that his father was not an open person. He was always shocked she spoke of him that way. She explained how he constantly hid his deepest feelings. The only exception was when he declared his deep love for her. So she asked Ghislain to understand him, even if he seems incredibly distant. He simply never learned how to express himself, making Ghislain instantly tense. His father suddenly orders him to raise his sword, and he immediately complies without a single word. Without any warning, they clash. Lord Pertium unleashes the first strike. They lock into a relentless, high-speed dance of blades and parries. Ghislain expertly parries every heavy strike coming his way. Backing off to gain distance, Ghislain notes his father's powerful weapon. The sword is devastatingly heavy, built to crush any defense. Yet its slender design makes it highly effective for both quick defense and offense. In a veteran's hands, it is absolutely lethal. The Lord strikes hard. Ghislain blocks the blow, ready to strike back immediately. They size each other up, moving with extreme caution. Both warriors push to the limit, aiming for the decisive final blow. Their swords find each other's throats, ending the duel in a draw. His father remarks on how much he has grown, but the young warrior remains deeply tense. His father tells Ghislain to ease up on the intense pressure. Stiff movements make any sword style too easily predictable. Ghislain ponders this piece of advice, suddenly realizing the true weight of it. Nobody had ever given him a real, official lesson before. His skills were purely instinctual, leaving him with some bad habits. Though always relying entirely on himself, receiving guidance actually feels incredibly good. His father looks at him sternly, offering some harsh but constructive advice. He demands his son follow the rules regardless of his achievements. Ghislain fully understands that without rules, chaos quickly takes over. In the end, his father acknowledges his immense growth, admitting he has truly changed. Ghislain stands in utter shock, reflecting on his heavy duties. He knows his duty is to look after the people on his lands. Then he remembers his father's earlier request, followed by a tense silence. His father awkwardly hesitates before finally asking if Ghislain happens to have any spare cash. Later, Ghislain heads out to the mercenary camp near the monster forest. Upon arrival, he asks how everyone in the camp is doing. They all shout back that everything is absolutely perfect. Reassured of their safety, Ghislain suddenly asks Jillian a crucial question. Asked about Rachel's health, the man hesitated. He never expected her recovery. Ghislain was genuinely happy, but then the man prepared to tell them everything. He warned them that their beloved family estate was currently facing a grave danger. He explained how the enemy ultimately wanted to spark a war with their schemes. In addition, he found the Prince of Gradia left dying on the brink of death. As for those targeting Pertium, they had likely been followed for ages. Belinda finally understood their extreme rush, and Kaor called Ghislain incredibly interesting. Gillian added that the estate was highly vulnerable, yet full of valuable resources. Ghislain agreed completely with his analysis. Meanwhile, Belinda urged them to act. She wanted to warn everyone immediately, but Ghislain flatly refused to do so. A spy had likely been hiding among their vassals for a very long time. Prepare yourselves, because with the stone discovered, a brutal battle was surely imminent. Silence fell over them. Then Kaor smiled and told Ghislain to order them. They would never be boring. Gillian declared they had already entrusted their lives. The entire group was ready to follow their leader to the very end. Belinda agreed, wanting to protect Ghislain too, which made him chuckle softly. Their true enemies were Duke Dolphin, Desmond, and Amelia. He had to prepare. Ghislain told everyone they were heading straight to the Scarlet Flame Tower. Belinda questioned why they did not visit the Crimson Tower for better rates. Ghislain replied they would face far fewer issues at the Scarlet Flame Tower. Gillian agreed, knowing they would likely be attacked at the Crimson Tower. The Scarlet Flame Tower was currently trying hard to restore its past glory. He chose it for a specific wizard living in that tower. A young girl waited for the faded light her master promised would shine. Soon, the mercenaries were left completely awestruck by the massive tower. The surrounding city was a shock on a completely different level compared to Pertium. Mages walked the streets everywhere, causing the rough mercenaries to stare in wonder. The mages' expressions darkened instantly, and they unleashed their powerful magic together. To everyone's shock, the mysterious mages simply vanished into thin air. Talk about a hostile welcome. Ghislain realized they were not wanted here. Despite the ominous atmosphere, Belinda noted the tower itself looked perfectly fine. Ghislain agreed that everything appeared normal, but soon they reached the base. Everyone was completely blown away by the tower's sheer, majestic size. Suddenly, Belinda noticed something strange. There were absolutely no gatekeepers. Instead, empty armor lay scattered everywhere. Then, a booming voice echoed. At that instant, the mages strictly forbade the travelers from entering. The scattered armor was clearly being controlled. Ghislain stepped forward immediately. He declared that the heir of Pertium stood before them, demanding respect. He asked to speak with their trade manager, but they rudely dismissed him. They claimed they were not buying anything, which instantly outraged Belinda. They had not even bothered to glance at their valuable goods first. The mages scoffed, preparing to expel the travelers from the premises. Furious, Belinda demanded they show themselves, turning to Ghislain for guidance. Ghislain calmly asked if they were absolutely sure about their refusal. He revealed the magic stone, its brilliant light instantly stunning the mages. He immediately recognized it as a runic stone, guessing exactly what they brought. The smug manager instantly apologized to Ghislain for their rude behavior. After introducing himself, Ghislain made their massive supply clear. Since the shipment was huge, he demanded someone high up to handle it. Hearing him ask for the Lord was shocking. Still, the manager agreed to tell the bishop, escorting them to wait. Belinda flashed a sarcastic grin, enjoying the sheer awkwardness. She quietly wondered if insulting other territories was really worth the trouble. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the entire building, prompting Ghislain to ask what was going on. But the guide brushed it off as standard magical research. Opening the door revealed thick smoke, sending a mage into a rage. He sneered, calling her absolutely useless with magic. The surrounding mages agreed, wondering why such a useless brat was here. Panting heavily, she insisted she had every right to enter the lab. The researcher merely laughed at her. If she truly was one, she should easily block his incoming attack. He fired a spell, freezing the girl in pure terror. She desperately reached out, but nothing happened. Complete terror, then a sharp sword cut through the air. Watch this, Ghislain casually deflected the lethal spell, leaving the mages stunned. Ghislain sighed, asking if this was their standard. Meanwhile, the Tower Lord was panicking over their severe shortage of runes. Losing ground to the Crimson Tower was driving him absolutely insane. Where are the reserve stones? Underlings whispered that the budget always went to the Lord's luxury instead. Their funds constantly disappeared into private parties and high-class entertainment. A brave mage noted the rival master had reached the 7th circle. Since their own bishop was stuck at the 6th, mentioning it was forbidden. The bishop raged, realizing his rival had hoarded every stone around. Suddenly, the sales manager burst through the door with urgent news. Over his master's anger, he blurted out that a supplier had arrived. A magic stone shipment was waiting downstairs. Now the researcher actually tries fighting Ghislain, which is honestly hilarious. Ghislain effortlessly parried every attack, completely unbothered by the magical onslaught. A massive jet of flames erupted, but he casually swatted it aside. Everyone was mesmerized by his swordplay when a sudden magic bind appeared. Belinda had quietly slipped behind the attacking mage, binding him tight. Right on cue, the furious bishop walked in to stop the chaos. He stared in disbelief, seeing his top student bound by a guest. Vanessa looked nervous, prompting Ghislain to tell Belinda to release the man. The pathetic mage immediately scampered to his master's side, crying for help. He wept, claiming he was the victim of a ruthless, unprovoked assault. Clinging to his master, he whined that Vanessa was too fragile for labs. Belinda sneered at his cowardice, while Vanessa quietly insisted on her lab. Ghislain silently watched the drama unfold. Things were about to get interesting. Belinda struggled, hard to believe, but then the Tower Lord arrived. He was furious, trespassers in his tower, and Belinda was asking questions. She demanded to know what to do after being threatened. Luckily, Ghislain stepped forward. He quickly apologized for the late greeting and introduced himself. He was the Pertium heir, and he came to sell stones. Shocking, the bishop gasped, and even the student was totally stunned. Ghislain calmly explained that his guards were keeping watch outside. He invited the mages to see, so they stepped out. Incredible, the sheer volume of stones left the mages completely speechless. Where did he get them? They whispered, unsure what to do. Ghislain just smiled. To him, this was a gift from heaven. With this supply, bypassing the Crimson Tower was finally possible. Or so he thought, but the Lord sneered, calling it trash. Cheap goods, he claimed. Coward was absolutely boiling with rage. Vanessa pointed out even one cart would last them weeks. Shut up, the Lord snapped, telling her she only ever made life miserable. Ghislain just watched. The ruler turned to his mages for backup. Right on cue, they agreed the quality was utterly terrible. What? Belinda raged, knowing how hard they fought for them. But the mages shrugged, asking why they should care about that. Their efforts didn't matter. Ghislain silently assumed the deal was completely dead. But then the Lord and his mages exchanged a look. Suddenly they flipped. They were willing to buy the batch. The Lord acted generous, offering to buy all their cargo. But Ghislain stopped him. Unload only one cart, he ordered, coward. They only wanted to sell one anyway, leaving everyone stunned. Coward smirked. Right, he chuckled, ordering his men to move. The Tower Lord began to fume, but Ghislain smoothed it over. Just a small misunderstanding by his men, he claimed. They had only stopped to make some travel money. Ghislain chuckled softly. The tension in the room vanished. Just like that, they sat down to talk. Let's see who breaks first. The Lord introduced his elders, all proud 5th Circle mages. Ghislain nodded, impressive, but expected from a top northern tower. The Lord smirked, claiming any rumors of weakness were false. Why provoke him? Belinda watched, terrified of what he was doing. The bishop cut to the chase, demanding to discuss the price. 2 fingers, Ghislain held them up, demanding double the price. Total outrage, the shocked mages couldn't believe his sheer audacity. The Lord warned him about his tactics, but Ghislain just smiled. He shot back that a prestigious tower deserved premium rates. More outrage followed his insolence, but the Lord stayed calm. He dismissed Ghislain as a reckless child, but the heir stayed silent. The bishop chimed in, offering to overlook his youthful mistakes. He generously offered to pay just slightly above the usual market rate. He calmly states there is no interest in the product, so they are leaving. He spins on his heel, leaving the flustered ruler scrambling to stop him. Realizing the Lord is just incredibly nervous, Ghislain lets out a soft chuckle. His companions watch calmly, and in the end, the bishop agrees to buy. The price is doubled, and a satisfied Ghislain firmly declares, only 1 cart. But the bishop wants everything, arguing they did not travel all this way for nothing. Ghislain counters, claiming the rival Crimson Tower would easily pay triple the price. Going there would be far more profitable, pushing the Lord to his absolute limit. The frustrated man warns that his patience is gone, but Ghislain just shrugs. He turns to leave again, forcing the panicked Lord to scream out the triple price. This brings a smug smile to Ghislain, glad they finally understand each other. The Lord tells him to wait while he personally goes to fetch the coin. Wait, look at this Lord, a high-rank noble, dancing entirely to a boy's tune. Just as he turns, Ghislain mentions there is still one more important condition. As the Lord begins losing his temper, Ghislain demands they hand over Vanessa. The bishop freezes in absolute shock, and Ghislain reiterates his cold demand. He wants her transferred immediately to become his own exclusive personal mage. Later, sitting around a campfire roasting meat, the mages discuss the mysterious girl. His companion is instantly outraged by the idea, quickly shutting down the talk. The camp falls silent until someone asks if Ghislain actually knows her past. There was a massive disaster where a rogue mage burned down northern Lutania. Ghislain thinks the terrifying title of the 7th Circle Mage sounds incredibly epic. The man warns him that the girl completely lost her mind back then. She abandoned normal methods and plunged straight into dangerous mana cultivation. She has been wreaking havoc everywhere, and hearing this makes Ghislain fall silent. He suddenly realizes she reached the legendary 7th Circle through cultivation. She bypassed traditional magic entirely, which sounds incredibly tempting to him. In his past life, Claude never managed to recruit her for some reason. She simply could not control her overwhelming powers, yet still reached that height. This time, Ghislain is absolutely determined to recruit her no matter what. His companions doubt her fragile appearance, but the tower mages are eager. Vanessa is totally useless to them anyway, so the Lord readily agrees. But Ghislain is not done. He also demands several 3rd Circle mages. This shocks the Lord, especially when Ghislain warns of an upcoming territorial war. The room grows incredibly tense as Ghislain repeats his steep demands. They all stare at this incredibly bold teenager in absolute, breathless shock. The Lord is slowly consumed by a pure, terrifying rage. He refuses to endure such blatant mockery from a mere brat. His raw mana violently shatters the windows, demanding to know if he looks like a fool. After all, tower mages are strictly forbidden from joining territorial wars. He feels Ghislain has deeply insulted the honor of their entire magic tower. Despite the suffocating pressure, Ghislain keeps his cool and stares right back. He warns the Lord that refusing this deal will be a massive regret. His territory holds dozens of times more mana stones than this single cart. And this priceless information has already spread across the entire north. He grunted back, anyone chasing quick gold would soon come crawling. Ghislain insisted they still needed the tower's power to secure their foothold. The man's eyes popped. Ghislain had just brought up custom deliveries. It was only a matter of time before the Scarlet Tower took its throne. The Lord stared down at the offered hand with pure disgust. A sour grimace twisted his face, but he reluctantly accepted. He agreed, then told Ulfoy that everything was set. The young mage was being sent to lead the squad. Ulfoy felt deeply honored by such immense praise from his lord. The Lord told Ulfoy this field duty would build much-needed character. His real job was keeping a close eye on Ghislain's magic stone trades. He just had to tolerate this setup for one single year. Ulfoy hesitated. He agreed, but instant regret was already creeping in. The second they reached Pertium, the other mages began scanning the place. Ulfoy kept his mouth shut, absolute disgust written all over his face. This place was a total dump, but he kept quiet out of respect. Ulfoy introduced himself to Ghislain, who merely shrugged and promised endless grunt work. As Ghislain walked off, Ulfoy fumed at being treated like some lowly peasant. Ghislain suddenly whirled around, demanding to know where Vanessa was hiding. Ulfoy muttered that she was probably lingering somewhere back with the bags. Right on cue, a girl stumbled out under a massive pile of luggage. She looked completely spent, nearly dropping to her knees right before Ghislain. When Ulfoy snapped at her speed, Ghislain ordered her to drop the bags. He pulled her close, leaving Ulfoy stammering as his protest was cut short. A sudden heavy shove sent Ulfoy sprawling onto the dirty ground, furious. Ghislain made it clear Vanessa was no longer some bathhouse servant. He warned everyone that touching a hair on her head meant trouble. Vanessa blushed, clearly flustered by the sudden, intense protection. Ulfoy was losing his mind, screaming at how a commoner dared touch him. He was a recognized mage and a proud heir, not some peasant's punching bag. He swore Ghislain had crossed a line, ready to launch a spell. Ghislain snapped his fingers, and instantly, every mercenary drew their blade. Talk about a reality check, the mages sputtered, yelling about their contract. But out here, Ghislain held all the cards, contract or not. He told the trembling mage that respect is earned, not given by birth. Ulfoy could only seethe, as they labeled him a mere reserve soldier. Ghislain ordered his men to show their guests how real work is done. Cowher smirked, teasing that tower life must have made them incredibly soft. Staring up at two towering mercenaries, Ulfoy felt a sudden spike of dread. Vanessa watched the entire clash with cold, detached eyes. When Ghislain approached, she quickly looked down, reminding him she had no magic. Offering a gentle smile, Ghislain quietly instructed the girl to follow him. He promised to guide her, vowing to unlock her hidden potential. They soon arrived at the dusty training grounds under a blazing sky. Ghislain turned to her, gently asking just how much she actually knew. She had studied all the way up to the 5th circle, leaving Ghislain completely amazed. Vanessa stared silently, then confessed she could not cast spells anyway. Ghislain asked why. Her teacher had eventually passed away. After that, she was expelled from the tower. Hearing this, Ghislain remained silent. Reaching the 5th circle was incredible, comparable to the power of tower elders. Vanessa understood the grand theories, but her broken body just could not keep pace with her mind. Still, her hard work was not wasted. She just needed a different path. Ghislain remembered Claude's words about her. He had called her completely crazy. But now Ghislain made a decision. He was going to teach her mana cultivation. Vanessa was completely stunned. Why would she ever need to cultivate? Ghislain explained everything was connected. She had never tried this approach. Suddenly she got terrified. This kind of magic felt like pure madness. But Ghislain gently urged her. She had to at least give it a try. Their eyes met. Vanessa weighed his proposal, wondering if she actually stood a chance. Could she really do it? She squeezed her fist tight, remembering her failures. Ghislain looked at her. He recognized those desperate eyes from his own past life. Drowning in regret, she yearned for magic, but only sank deeper. This time, however, Ghislain knew exactly how to rescue her and pull her back from that dark edge. He refused to let her fall again. Reaching out, Ghislain began the process. He carefully guided his own mana into Vanessa, sending a deep warmth through her. He warned her to stay silent so she wouldn't break the flow. His energy was flooding her system, reaching every single corner to spark her inner core. Suddenly, the entire room erupted in a blinding, brilliant glow of pure energy. Under the blinding light, deep memories of her teacher suddenly resurfaced. Her teacher had fiercely defended her, but the Lord scoffed at her lack of talent. What kind of useless mage was she, they asked, unable to cast even one spell? The High Bishop sneered that investing a single coin in Vanessa was a waste. She remembered her crying younger self. Then, another memory flickered to life. She had wept, telling her master that a more talented student would not have failed. Her master would not have been forced to leave, but he only smiled gently. He was just going on a trip, telling her that no darkness in the world lasts forever. He promised the truth would shine, and that saving light was Ghislain. Finally, she realized her old master had been right all along. A kind soul had finally reached out to her, letting her step back into the warm sun. But while they find peace, wild chaos is erupting inside a nearby tavern. Several rugged travelers clashed inside. One smug warrior kept mocking his angry opponents. They completely took the bait and lunged, but he easily slipped past their blades. With blinding speed, the mocking warrior grabbed his first attacker by the wrist. He effortlessly threw him across the room, then flattened the second fighter instantly. They smashed through the outer wall, leaving a massive hole. The warrior laughed mockingly. He muttered that he had not even warmed up. His brutal allies laughed along. Annoying little worms were interrupting their meal, they joked, and nobody dared stop them. Outside, another companion sat peacefully fishing. They yelled out to ask about his training. The fisherman ignored the question, dryly asking what they actually wanted from him. His ally replied there was a direct order from Desmond. Hearing that name, he stood. He secured his helmet, gearing up to set off on his mission, muttering that this place was incredibly dull anyway. Meanwhile, word finally reached the Pertium estate. And Ghislain's father looked grave. A grim letter delivered the shocking news that Ghislain had slain Gilmore de Grad, and the enemy was now demanding blood. The Lord called for his troops to mobilize immediately, completely outraged by this baseless accusation. Everyone believed the enemy was just using this as a cheap excuse for war, but Count Pertium tried his best to maintain control. Suddenly, reports flooded in that the people were demanding answers. Ghislain was certain their vassals had leaked secrets about these sudden changes, sparking pure fury over this blatant betrayal. The Lord quietly realized that sometimes doing what is best for your people only brings destruction. Yet Ghislain seemed to have anticipated this exact disaster. A knight proudly argued that they held far more troops and territory than the de Grads, but their confidence was shattered as Scoven burst in with urgent, terrifying news. Right at that moment, the Lord sensed a massive conspiracy, as the enemy forces were already visible. Immediately following their declaration of war, then, scouts reported their overwhelming numbers. And siege weapons, the raw power difference was so massive, panic quickly spread. But watch how Lord Pertium steps in, snapping his men back to reality. Arguing only wastes the precious time they need to prepare their defenses. Civilians were immediately ordered to evacuate, and the reality of war finally set in. The invading count neared the castle gates, musing that his talentless son's death was actually the perfect excuse to launch this war. He looked up, impressed by the castle fortification. Lord Pertium glared down at his brother, demanding an explanation. But de Grad loudly accused them, claiming his son was murdered on these very lands. Even worse, the killer was Pertium's eldest son. He offered a bloodless surrender. Promising mercy, Ghislain observed the scene in silence, while his fellow lords boiled. With anger, he knew this confrontation was always going to happen. And those massive siege engines proved the enemy wanted total annihilation. But then his father boldly spoke up in defense of his son, Ghislain. That proud stance made de Grad flinch for a second, sensing real danger. Sam marveled at the old general's terrifying, commanding presence. De Grad expected Nothing less from the legendary Wolf of the North. He warned Pertium not to regret. This choice, his mocking laughter echoing up to the high castle walls. A knight urgently requested orders, but the terrified nobles begged them to surrender. As they bickered, Pertium kept quiet, his mind clouded by the sudden chaos. The sudden invasion caught them off guard. He had no clear plan how to proceed, but Ghislain stepped up, calmly ordering them to prepare for a siege. His father stared in shock. Ghislain pointed out that while the power gap was more than double, the real assault would begin once those weapons were ready. Their only viable strategy was to hold the fort and send for external reinforcements. Lord Pertium sighed, noting that even if they survived, their next steps remained completely unclear. This only drew a quiet chuckle from Ghislain, who leaned in and whispered a secret plan. The Count remained speechless, just staring at him in utter disbelief. Ghislain was betting their entire survival on a massive gamble. To turn the tides, gathers his trusted allies to discuss the next move, but Ghislain was completely stumped. Cower fell silent in deep thought, and Belinda stood paralyzed. The war has officially begun. Ghislain steps up to lay out their strategy. His plan is simple: strike the enemy supplies before it is too late. But Belinda is skeptical, wondering how they can pull it off with eyes everywhere. Ghislain turns to Cower and Ghislain, who confirm they have executed his orders. Troops are already hidden in the forest, equipped with specialized stealth cloaks. With everything ready, Ghislain knows a small unit can easily strike. A fast sabotage unit will work, but they first need the location. So he tasks Belinda with sneaking in to scout the enemy setup. She is taken aback, knowing how incredibly dangerous this mission is. But Ghislain trusts her completely. Now, only one trump card remains. This single move could end the entire war. A few days pass. The enemy supply camp is spotted in the rear, keeping their commanders relaxed. Some of them are already celebrating, greedy to claim these lands as their own. But right on schedule, the ambush begins. Get ready for chaos. Thick clouds roll in, cutting off all visibility. It is pitch black. Ghislain smirks. The weather is perfect. He gives the cold order. Take no prisoners, he commands. Kill them all. The guards never stand a chance. Charging knights cut down the first line of defense in seconds. Panic spreads as the remaining soldiers try to rally for battle. But before they can raise a shield, they are slaughtered. Ghislain roars to show no mercy. These enemies do not deserve it. Word of the raid reaches the enemy barren, but he shrugs it off. He boasts about having 1,000 men, but his messenger looks terrified. Outside, Ghislain's squad is absolutely tearing through the camp. One soldier hesitates for a second, right before his ally is struck down. Knocked flat on his back, he looks up as Belinda appears. She recognizes him instantly. He is Pablo's vassal. He trembles in horror. As the camp burns, Belinda reveals that Pablo is the traitor leading them. The cornered vassal starts begging for his life. Ghislain demands the mastermind's name. He immediately rats out Desmond, even trying to throw out weak threats. It is clear now, Desmond sold their army out to the degrads. Desperate, the traitor dismounts and grovels, trying to save his own skin. He actually thinks he has a chance, thanking Ghislain for sparing him. But without saying a word, Ghislain swings his blade and takes his head. The traitor dies in utter confusion. Ghislain does not negotiate with rats. To him, traitors deserve absolutely nothing but a swift death. With the camp ablaze, Belinda watches as Ghislain prepares to move. They must return to the castle immediately before the main siege starts. Flanking the enemy from behind will easily shatter their front line. He hands command of the left flank over to Cower and Belinda. Taking the right for himself, he turns to entrust the base to Ghislain. Ghislain accepts the mission without issue, ready to lock down their target. Belinda asks who will guard the main gate, but his response leaves them puzzled. Ghislain just smiles silently at his comrades, promising a brand new era. This war will completely rewrite history for the House of Pertium. They prepare for the incoming attack. as crossbowmen quickly line the wall to target the enemy. But it is already too late. They scaled the walls in massive numbers. Close quarters combat breaks out everywhere as the fierce battle rages on. Watching the bloody chaos, Sam is absolutely convinced that this is the end for the North. He once doubted, but there is no denying that Pertium has reached a dead end. They say the gates will fall next, but the Lord orders them to ignore the gate. Scoven rushes over to deliver a grim report to his commander. No reinforcements are coming to support them. It is a real shame nobody is willing to support them. A panicked messenger rushes to report the absolute worst news directly to Commander Degrad. Their supplies are completely gone and the delivery unit has vanished. Degrad is stunned that Pertium managed to locate their camp. Worse, thick smoke is rising from the camp, confirming all their fears. Degrad desperately asks what they are supposed to do now. But Sam just slaps his face, declaring supplies are useless. Degrad stands completely speechless as Sam claims they will take the castle by sunset. Sam quietly turns back toward the castle walls, showing the focus of a seasoned veteran. Their flank attack has started, but the walls still hold strong. Yet the central gates are completely undefended, and suddenly everything clicks. He immediately orders every single soldier to charge and breach that gate. He pauses for a tense moment before calling over his most elite and powerful warrior. As Id steps forward, the defenders realize they should have held. But the enemy keeps scaling the walls. Suddenly, Scoven alerts his lord to a massive incoming threat. To their horror, the rolling towers are the exact same height as the walls. Lord Pertium immediately orders all catapults to get ready. With setup complete, they begin firing immediately. They desperately try to stop those giant towers from reaching their own castle walls. But before it can land, someone smashes the projectile midair. Pertium is absolutely horrified, unable to immediately recognize the mysterious knight staring back. He cannot believe his eyes. It is actually Sam. Sam declares their doom is certain, ordering the ram brought out. They aim for the gate, while enemy warriors begin storming across the castle walls. Amidst the heavy fighting, a few desperate soldiers stand guard to protect the inner entrance. Meanwhile, the mages are tied up, and Ulfoy is completely furious. He furiously demands their release, refusing to sit back and die. The knight orders him to be silent, but Ulfoy keeps protesting. He warns that letting the battering ram get this close is suicide. Vanessa remains calm, reassuring him that Ghislain will handle everything. Ulfoy refuses to believe her, and the more she tries to soothe him, the angrier he gets. She calmly insists that Ghislain is trustworthy, recalling their recent training. He had taught her magic, though only a tiny fraction of it was ever revealed. She felt embarrassed and apologized, but Ghislain warmly encouraged her. He called her outside to show her some secret construction. She wonders why they buried the runic circle. Right then, Ulfoy steps up, demanding to know why they are digging. Gordon quickly intervenes, leaving Vanessa completely stunned by it all. But Ghislain explains this is preparation, because he knows the gates will fall. Even so, his deep belief in victory remains totally unshaken. Suddenly, Vanessa realizes his actual plan, and it all finally clicks. She is terrified. Can she actually handle this massive pressure? But Ghislain expects greatness from her, so Vanessa starts channeling her power. Ulfoy watches as she floods the magic circle with pure mana. Completely focused, the mage remembers his inspiring words of encouragement. She can do this. Nearby, battle echoes against the gate. Randolph spots a fast-approaching enemy unit coming from the distance. Oswald instantly recognizes his own son, leading the elite enemy troop. A messenger immediately rushes to Victor with an urgent battle report. An unexpected surprise attack is hitting them from two different directions. Cowrer and Belinda flank one side, while Ghislain hammers the other. The stunned defenders scramble to react, but their efforts are futile. Facing Ghislain is absolute suicide, because the man is a battlefield beast. Ghislain orders his loyal Pertium soldiers to rise for the counterattack. The trap works, they completely surround the invaders on their own turf. At the Digrad base, Ghislain boldly declares he will hold the line. He orders Gordon and Thorin to flank, destroying the enemy camp. Mercenaries show absolute, unwavering loyalty to their commander. Count Digrad is completely stunned by this. His panic-stricken knights desperately scramble to escort him to safety. But Ghislain charges forward relentlessly with a heavy axe in hand. He aims to take the enemy leader prisoner, but a knight blocks him. This defensive opponent is clearly no ordinary soldier. The enemy lancer mockingly praises their courage for attacking outnumbered. The lancer demands to know Ghislain's name before their duel. But the mercenary coldly replies there is no need for introductions. Meanwhile, on the west wall, Belinda traps them in mana threads. Cowher finishes them off while Belinda complains about getting dirty. He just laughs and tells her to dodge because they cannot stop now. Over on the east wall, Ghislain is absolutely decimating the enemy. They must exploit this panic to ensure no invader escapes alive today. An outraged enemy commander screams at his fleeing soldiers. A wall of lancers quickly turns to block Ghislain's path. Ghislain whispers to his horse to dodge, and the beast obeys. The horse obeys, dodging every spear with supernatural agility. The shocked defenders do not even see his attack coming. He locks his legs around a soldier's neck, using him as pivot. He sweeps down every enemy around him instantly, decapitating them and slicing them clean in half on the spot. But Ghislain realizes the defenses up on the wall are failing fast. At this rate, the entire stronghold will collapse before they can open the gate. Despite their efforts, the overwhelming enemy numbers are dangerous. One misstep and the enemy commander screams to stop Ghislain. The troops shriek that he cannot advance another single inch. Ghislain knows his time is running out before the wall crumbles. Channeling aura into his massive blade, he instantly decapitates the first soldier. The second falls with a gaping chest wound, while the third is completely blindsided. Ducking a sudden rain of arrows, Ghislain skewers the commander on his blade. Then, using his weapon as a grappling hook, he launches himself upward. Right onto the wall, directly in front of the enemy Grand Captain, Victor. Victor is actually impressed. He took down the whole camp single-handedly. But the main gate still holds, its defense tougher than they expected. A scout estimates 10 more minutes, but Victor demands it done in 5. He will personally crush the enemy captain while threatening his own men. But Cao steps in right then, declaring that Victor is going nowhere. The mercenary leader is looking for a real fight today. But Victor is a seasoned monster. He immediately commands his warhorse. It delivers a brutal kick to Cao's steed, killing the beast instantly. Cao gets thrown completely off balance, but the mercenary king recovers fast. He dodges, yet stands stunned as Victor blocks every single strike cleanly. Victor just scoffs at mercenaries who think they are actually strong. His next devastating blow does not just push Cao back, it shatters. His sword breaks clean in half as Victor strikes him squarely. Cao feels the raw force and remembers Ghislain's dire warning. Victor is the absolute ace of the Digrad family, a true monster. He is stronger than anyone Ghislain has ever faced in battle. This guy will use overwhelming force to smash through the wall. If Victor decides to abandon the gate, their defense falls apart. Pertium's plan will completely crumble. That is why Cao cannot quit. Holding Victor back is his only mission. Can he actually survive this monster? Meanwhile, across the chaotic battlefield, Adam is locked in a duel. Ghislain is getting deeply frustrated that he cannot light his men. But Adam's massive, heavy shield absorbs every single one of his strikes. He cannot even remember the last time he faced such ironclad defense. Seizing a sudden opening, Adam manages to land a heavy blow. He pins Ghislain flat to the ground with his shield right then. At that exact moment, the enemies finally breach the Pertium gates. Vanessa drains the last bit of mana, demanding even more power. Victor announces the breach and orders all units to attack immediately. He commands the main army forward, taking complete charge of the invasion. But Cao cuts him off, refusing to let him leave the duel. Victor questions why a mercenary would throw away his life like this. Meanwhile, Adam calmly tells Ghislain that the battle is already lost. They were completely blindsided by the rear attack, and it is all over. But Pertium's real mistake was relying on mere mercenaries to save them. Believing that paid soldiers could ever close the massive gap in power. They matched elite knights. Both Victor and Adam underestimated them. Coward stood up. It mattered little if they were knights or mercenaries. Ghislain finished the thought, you either win or you die. Adam retorted that there was simply no point in talking to an animal. But then he lunged forward, throwing his spear to the ground in anger. Adam incredulously asked how he dared call himself merely a mercenary. Blocking the axe that threatened to cleave him, Adam heard Ghislain reply, "No matter how good the defense, there will always be an opening." His only purpose in life now was to serve as the master's sword. Meanwhile, Coward felt Victor's monstrous power. He could not die here. He recalled asking Ghislain how the young master had won that bet. Ghislain had taught him that the most important part was reading the opponent. It was not about the movement, but understanding what the enemy thought. You had to know exactly how the enemy expected you to move. Victor mocked Coward, saying he looked like a wild animal when attacking. Ghislain knew they would underestimate him. Suddenly, Coward shifted his stance. His movements became wildly unpredictable, like a sudden dagger throw. Victor sneered, calling him a reckless fool with nothing to lose. Reckless decisions usually lead to death, but hiding your true intentions changes everything. That was exactly what Coward did, suddenly grabbing the captain's arm. He used Victor's heavy armor as leverage, avoiding a direct hit. Using his sword for mid-air momentum was completely unexpected, Victor realized. Even in this desperate situation, the mercenary still formulated a strategy. Only someone truly prepared for death could achieve such a feat. The captain finally admitted Coward was no wild beast, he had talent. Pushing past limits is common when facing life or death, Victor noted. He regretted their brief acquaintance, admitting he had severely misjudged him. With a smirk, Coward watched as Victor was nearly struck by Belinda's threads. The sharp threads pulled Coward far away from the captain's deadly reach. All of that was just to buy time, and wow, did they succeed. Victor realized the strike was a surprising and clever distraction. Without the woman, Coward wouldn't trade his life for a single blow. A grander scheme was unfolding, and Victor finally understood the truth. If he didn't breach the gates immediately, catastrophe was coming. He spotted Vanessa concentrating an immense, terrifying wave of power. Ghislain had given her a simple plan to turn the tables on the enemy. When they crowded the entrance, she would unleash her powerful magic. When she doubted herself, Ghislain told her he trusted her completely. The magic circle flared with an absolute ocean of explosive mana. A colossal firestorm swept through the gates, burning everyone alive. Honestly, the resulting view on the horizon was terrifying and magnificent. Surviving soldiers desperately tried to flee, only to carbonize instantly. But Ghislain intercepted the runners, ordering his forces to surround them. They closed the gates tightly, ensuring no invader would leave alive. Victor watched in absolute horror as his army was burned alive. Victor found it infuriating. They had planned this war for years, predicting every single one of Pertium's escape routes, yet those soldiers, and a mage who could vaporize hundreds of soldiers instantly, had ruined everything. It was too much of a coincidence, Victor decided. They had walked right into a trap, so he ordered a retreat, believing they could easily reorganize outside the forest. But when he finally Sent for Adam, he saw his subordinate's head carried by Ghislain. The mercenary casually announced they had wiped out Adam's entire troop, telling Victor it was time to surrender, but Victor absolutely refused to accept. The war ending so easily, swearing he would rip Ghislain's head off next. This was personal now. Meanwhile, the forces of Pertium launched counterattack, cutting off the retreating Degrad soldiers, Ghislain declared. This was their perfect chance to turn the tide. When Belinda appeared, Ghislain insisted he was fine, while Ghislain gave a thumbs up. Belinda commented that any longer, and he would have died, admitting. She initially thought the plan was completely idiotic, but Ghislain pointed out. It worked. Belinda swore she'd never pull a stunt like that again, reminding him they only survived thanks to accumulated crystals. When Ghislain asked about Ghislain, the young master rushed off immediately. Ghislain was facing Victor alone. The commander's blows were incredibly heavy, proving he was without a doubt the enemy's most powerful warrior. A deep slash sliced Ghislain's shoulder, forcing the mercenary to admit his opponent's superiority. Unable to find an opening, Victor scoffed at the pathetic mercenary. Without much effort, Victor hooked his blade into Ghislain's heavy axe. The next blow would decide it, despite being impaled. Ghislain narrowly avoided death, deflecting the edge just enough to protect his vital organs. Victor recognized his extreme tenacity, understanding how he managed to take down Adam. No one had ever survived his attacks for so long, but Victor thought it was foolish to waste all